we are back from closed session. Anything to report out, Mr.
Yes,
City
thank you.
Attorney?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The council met in closed session and consider two related items. One, anticipated litigation, and second, also anticipated litigation, both relating to an appeal by Mr. Scott Chassé regarding the Reach Codes application to a single-family project at 401 East Topatopa Street. The council provided direction to staff and council, including making an offer to resolve the matter. The details will be publicly available if and when the offer is accepted. If not, further closed sessions will be held. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. City Attorney. All right, we will go ahead and close the closed session, and we will open the regular meeting. Welcome, everyone, to the Tuesday, March 12th, 2024 meeting of the Ojai City Council. Do we have a quorum?
Absolutely.
Yes, okay. Thank you. All right, so would you please say the pledge, Mr. Management and Analyst?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Will. And do we need a roll call?
Absolutely, Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Sticks,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Whitman,
Here.
Councilmember Rule,
Here.
Councilmember Lang,
Here.
Councilmember Francina.
Here.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Will, for sitting in for our city clerk. We really are grateful for you being here. Thank you. All right, is there a motion to approve the agenda? Oops.
Madam Mayor,
Mr.
if I
City
may,
Manager? Yep.
thank you. So, sorry. I think there may have been an issue on the staff side. I don't know that we have. Your mic isn't working. I'm sorry. Thank you for that. Is that better? Okay. I think there may have been an issue on the staff side. I'm looking down at the presentation, and I think we may have. I don't see Dr. Simmons here. And I think we may have inadvertently told him the following meeting was when the presentation was going to take place. So I just apologize for that, but I don't believe that's going to take place this evening. That'll be the following meeting.
Okay, thank you. No worries. All right, motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move to approve. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Okay, wonderful. All right, we will move on to commission reports. Any commissioners here to report anything? Chair Akins.
Thank you, Mayor. I come before you as the Chair of the Historic Preservation Commission, just to give you an update. I have two exciting things. One is I wanted to introduce the individual who is being put forth to you in the consent item. And so I'd like at this time Sonia Frasina to come up so I can introduce her. Here she is, Sonia. Be glad you're only getting a light applause.
Okay.
So, sure. So I was looking back at her resume. I knew that she'd been very patient in coming to this spot, and I brought her resume with me. I looked up at the top right and saw her name, and then over to the right I said, whoa. It's dated January 2nd, 2022. So we're happy to have you here, very much so. Again, she has been interviewed by myself, by Mayor Sticks, and by Councilmember Lang. So very happy to introduce you to her and to have her name brought before you to go on to the commission. Will, we're going to have to talk since you just took Weston's spot, and we had an action item for Weston. So we'll figure it out. I do want to, again, thank the board members. There is a Commissioner Whitman, and I are now working on Commissioner number 7 for the Historic Preservation Commission. So again, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Akins. Thank you, Sonia, for being here, and we'll get to you on the consent calendar, so thank you. All right, we will move on to public communications, and just a reminder, we have 30 minutes at the beginning, and these are items, thank you very much, not on the agenda, so we cannot discuss them. We can agendize them for the future. So let's begin with Curtis Knecht, then David Chapman, then Cassandra Marino.
Hi, my name is Curtis Connect, and I'm a neighbor here. I'm here to speak around the folks who've set up camp and are living on this land. I think I want to say three things. One is I walk through every couple of weeks, and it looks much more tight, well organized. There's not as much trash, and I appreciate that. The second thing is just to reiterate what I said when this was on the agenda, that this is not the neighborhood for an encampment of this sort. So I would certainly urge the search for alternative places. And three, I hope that the council and those folks who are thinking this through have a bit of a long-term plan, like a 5-10-year plan. This is a very complex issue, and it needs thoughtfulness. And my concern from the last meeting about the grant is somehow there's a rush to get the grant, and then an idea the grant is going to kind of save us all. And I just want to put a word in for really having an ongoing, thoughtful conversation about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. Next, we have David Chapman, then Cassandra Marino, and then Starchild.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for your diligent efforts to improve our city. And thanks to the new city manager for engaging so quickly on critical issues that affect our town. I live on Blanche Street, which is just around the corner, one of the many neighbourhoods affected by the encampment. I am encouraged to see more infrastructure activity today in the parking lot. A wooden structure has been built to create a level area for the installation of more wilderness tents so that folk can be moved from the grassy areas up into the parking lot. This move will provide improved shelter and drier conditions for those living off the parking lot. I am requesting the city actively engage in finding an alternative permanent site for the encampment that will enable permanent transitional housing for the unhoused on a suitable site where support services can be provided along with trolleybus transportation, and a site that is not adjacent to neighbourhood housing. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next, we have Cassandra Marino, then Starchild, and then Jan Scow.
Hi, thank you. I'm Cassandra. I agree with everything that David said, so it doesn't need to be repeated. Obviously, I support the relocation. Just on a personal note, I grew up here on South Ventura, and my mom had a shop on Ojai Avenue, and one of the best parts about growing up here was that she didn't have to worry about me at all. And I moved here for the same reason. I'm a single mom. I have 3 young kids. I live right down the street, and it's hard to have, my daughter's going skateboarding, and she's had some instances where, people have been a little bit threatening towards her. And obviously, as a mom, we can all relate that that's not something that any of us would want. And yeah, I so believe in this town, and I know you guys are between a rock and a hard place. I know you have to balance the humanitarian obvious concerns, legal concerns, the neighborhood concerns, and I know that you're trying to balance all those things. And I appreciate, like David said, that you're doing your best to clean this up and make it tenable for all of us. So just here to provide a voice for the neighborhood, and I appreciate investigating alternative locations. So thank you.
Thank you, Cassandra. Next, we have Starchild, then Jan Scow, and then Michelle Thomas.
Hello, good evening. I wanted to discuss a little bit about the December 20th City Council meeting. And I realize there's been a lot of disunity and strife in the community after the ceasefire resolution. And I don't want to draw that up. I'm really just trying to put some last things to bed. I was finally able to see the minutes for the meeting and saw the vote that City Council took to allow one of the speakers, Ms. Syed, some extra time to speak during the meeting. And I wanted to just voice some of my disagreement with that process. I know Councilmember Rule wasn't there, and I know Susan Francina expressed she thought everybody should get to speak as long as they'd like. But for the other council members there, it seemed like they provided Ms. Zayed some extra time to speak, maybe because they were pleased with what she had to say, maybe because of the uniqueness of her perspective as a Palestinian American woman. But fast forward to the meeting that was February 23rd, and we saw a man, Dor, who came to this country. He had just been here for 10 days. He said that he was fleeing the terrorism and violence in Israel. He brought 2 children, his wife here, and he came to speak. He spoke for 2 minutes and asked for some extra time, and he wasn't allowed to speak longer. The mayor said, in the spirit of equity, that he couldn't be provided any extra time. And I thought a lot about that idea, spirit of equity. I had to look it up. And I guess the idea is to provide fairness. But the question really is fairness to who? You know, why is it that Ms. Zayed gets more time and Dor has to sit down? And I'd really like the council instead to operate out of a spirit of equality, where kind of everybody is treated the same, no matter whether our opinion is pleasing to the council or whether you disagree with us. So I'd ask that for council to do. Another thing that I've been considering and I looked at is Ms. Zayed said the reason why she wanted more time to speak is because she's Palestinian. And that made me think that maybe if council was listening to her reasoning, they let her speak more because of her race. And I think that's something that council shouldn't do. I think everybody ought to be treated the same, no matter whether they're Jewish or Palestinian or whatever their race is. And I think it might even be illegal to give people more time or less time based on their race. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Starchild. Next we have Jan Scow and then Michelle Thomas.
Hello, my name is Jan Scow. I live at 401 North Ventura Street here in Ojai. I'm a registered consulting arborist, and I'm speaking as a private citizen. Hopefully we can all agree that trees are an important part of our city. In addition to making us a beautiful city, they provide immense environmental benefits, helping to combat global climate change by cooling our city, improving air quality, reducing stormwater runoff, and sequestering carbon. In addition, studies have shown that trees contribute to improved mental health, reduced crime rates, and a higher quality of life. Part of the appeal of this city is its amazing forest. I want to provide the council with a wake-up call. We are not doing enough to protect our incredible urban forest. As a working arborist in the city, I am well aware of the number of mature trees that are being removed because they are unsafe, have fallen, or died. Old trees die. We're not doing enough to ensure that we leave Ojai a better place than we found it. So, what to do? The following items come to my mind. First, the city needs to require one-to-one mitigation planting for protected trees that are removed, at the very least. Second, city staff and I rewrote the tree protection ordinance to update it and strengthen it over a year ago. But the revised ordinance has never even been considered, much less implemented. Third, supposedly we are a Tree City USA, but technically I don't believe we qualify, as there are conditions which are not being met. 2 conditions: having an active tree board or department, and having a community forestry program with a required budget of $2 per city resident, which is about $15,000 a year. Finally, the city desperately needs a city arborist, and no, that won't be me, who can be responsible for keeping track of what's going on with the trees in the city. I encourage the city council to take up these issues. I've been living here for nearly 6 years, and I've been visiting Ojai for over 35 years. I have seen the city forest decline. It's slow, incremental, hard to notice, but it is happening. We need to wake up and take some serious steps to ensure that we continue to support our incredible urban forest. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Next we have Michelle Thomas, then Ron Solarsano, and then Garrett Clifford.
Hello, I'm Michelle Thomas. I've lived in the Golden West neighborhood for 40 years. I'm very pleased to see your goals, making some mention of public safety. Thank you. On Friday evening, I saw the aftermath of a speeding driver who blew a turn on Golden West. I saw the aftermath of a speeding driver who blew a turn on Golden West. In the space of 6 houses, this man managed to T-bone a parked car, which was pushed towards the house along with his truck. He traveled so fast, he pushed the car through my neighbor's fence, which was made of bricks. 2 cement bricks were shattered. If our neighbor's house was closer to the property line, the car would have gone into their bedrooms. This is a family neighborhood. There's kids out there all the time. Through Facebook, for once it was handy, I realized a similar accident happened on Anita and Golden West, which took out a neighbor's fence, and this happened a year ago. I see traffic increasing exponentially. I understand there was also a serious accident on Creek Road this Friday, about 3 hours after my neighbor's house almost got taken out. So, traffic and traffic accidents are a serious public safety in the city and the larger valley. I see reckless driving and speeding with increased traffic load that we are enduring everywhere. This issue appears to be woefully understudied by the city. I was looking through the general plan, which is laborious reading, and it hurts my eyes, but in the circulation element, there's very little mention of this. So I encourage you to do 2 things. Please agendaize an item or a meeting on this topic. Please think about voting to commission a valley-wide traffic study. I know the city is only responsible for the city. Please talk to the county, find some funding. We need an independent study, not one funded by developers who only study right in front of their place and don't see the whole big picture. Councilwoman Lang, never met you before, hi. Golden West is your district, so I'm hoping to follow up with you individually and move this forward. I even got an idea from the circulation element. Before I close, I want to say to the whole council, please get ahead of this issue before the El Roblar Hotel opens.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. Next, we have Ron Solarsano, then we have Garrett Clifford, and then Jennifer Fleischman.
All right. Good evening, members of council. My name is Ron Solorsano, and I am the regional librarian for the Ojai Valley, here today to give you a quick update again on some of what we have going on at the Ojai Library. So we have a few fun programs happening at the library in the next few weeks. First of all, on Saturday, March 23rd, we have Ventura author P. Scott Corbett, who's going to visit the Ojai Library to speak about his new trilogy of books. Beginning with his first installment, Harvest of Hunger, Corbett will talk about writing historical fiction, his creative process, and publishing your work. Then the following month, we will have Associate Professor of Sociology, Dr. Rachel Soper, joining us on Saturday, April 13th, to give a talk titled Defining Regenerative Agriculture in California. The talk is going to focus on how public comments from listening sessions and working group meetings have influenced the California Department of Food and Agriculture on this subject. Dr. Soper is writing a book currently about sustainable, organic, and regenerative farmers in Ventura County, and she comes to us as part of the California State University Channel Islands Library Lecture Series. So that'll be Saturday, April 13th. Then on the more crafty side, the library is going to be hosting a rock painting activity for children and teens on Sunday, March 24th at 12:30. Participants can design their own rocks, paint them up, and then take them home to add to their own home gardens. On the other hand, on Sundays for our adult customers, we have the Ojai Library's Wonder Workshop, which is going to continue every week on Sunday at 2:30. And these sessions will be facilitated by library staff who will assist with projects including crochet, visible mending, and Coptic bookbinding. This is a drop-in program. No registration is required, and the programs are followed by additional crafting time that's a little more open form for anyone interested in that. We have so many more other activities also happening at the Ojai Library, including one-on-one career coaching, adult literacy support, ukulele, poetry, and Shakespeare clubs, book club kits, story time, Lego play sessions, and more. For details on any of these programs, drop by our library or visit us online at www.vencolibrary.org. That's all I have for you. Thank you so much, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Ron. Next, we have Garrett Clifford, then Jennifer Fleischman, and then Len Clafe.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome, Ben. Nice to have you on board. Ojai Trees is planting trees this coming Saturday and April 20th. And we've had an incredible winter. The rain has been spectacular. The ground, I'm already digging holes, and the ground is like butter. So it's going to be a fun time. We're going to be planting 7 trees on city property, 2 of them going into Libby Park, one to replace one of the oaks that came down, another one that we want to get over by the bleacher area, and then 5 street trees in other locations. There's other trees that are going to be going in on private property, so it's an exciting time. If people want a tree, we've got the planting coming up on the 20th, and we can do that one. And if you want to come and plant trees and get real dirty, show up at the park behind the tennis courts at 8:30, and we'd love to have you join us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Garrett. Next, we have Jennifer Fleischman, and then Len Clafe.
Good evening. I'm Jennifer Fleischman, and I am an Ojai resident, an Ojai homeowner, an Ojai voter. And I want to thank you, first of all, for the long hours you put in. I admire and respect the effort of every one of you. I don't always agree with everything, but I admire and grateful that you're putting in the time. So meetings are long, and I happened to watch one a few weeks ago, and you were about to vote on instituting a 90-day minimal rental term, which got me very concerned. I rent to an Ojai local who leaves every summer for about 2-3 months, varies. And I would like the option to be able to rent the space out. And so this ordinance would take that away from me. And there's a whole lot of other types of circumstances that, you know, visitors and locals would be impacted by this. I understand the intention behind it and the heart. You want to address the short-term rental issue, people abusing it. And I think it should be addressed. I'm not promoting that. I just think there has to be a nuanced plan and a way of carving out situations for people like me that, you know, generally want to offer different types of housing. Having somebody rent a room in your space is very personal, and to have to force us to only start out with 90 days is a bit dramatic. You know, you want to have that time. I actually had one lady rent from us who started calling this town on my neighbor's wind chimes. So, you know, you have to be able to, you know, bring things to close. The other issue is it needs some carve-outs. And you know, I made a post about it this week because I wanted to bring some attention because I was, you know, worked up about it. And somebody reached out to me who owns a condo and is a lawyer, and her concern was that there's some civil codes that were passed. And I don't feel I don't have the background to get deep into the weeds on it, but it is concerning because their HOAs and condo associations all already seem to have protections from the state that was, you know, I can read it to you, but I will follow up with an email because I think our city manager and lawyer need to look at these. That basically there prohibits a rental that shall not be subject to a provision in a government document that prohibits a rental or leasing of a portion of the owner-occupied separate interest in that common interest development to a renter, lessee, or tenant for a period of more than 30 days. In other words, the HOA can't tell them they can't rent for more than, they can't put that provision on that you're trying to impose on us. So there may be some issues rising out of that if you do it without carve-outs or without considering these things. So thank you for your time. More to follow. Bye.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next, we have Len Clafe.
Good evening, Leonard Clafe. I live in the city of Ojai. Before I get to what I came here for, I wanted to say how fortunate we are to have Ron as our librarian here in Ojai. It's just a fabulous job that he does. And I would like to add a dittos to the speaker about speeding traffic and the importance of trees in our community. The reason I'm here has something to do a little bit with traffic. Caltrans has apparently decided that it's okay to dig up all our intersections, leave the holes, and not come back. I don't, and I know Caltrans, you have nothing to do with it directly, but I'm curious as to whether or not the city has made inquiry as to why the post office has these 2 huge holes in front of it for the last 3 months. And if you have not made inquiry and not filed complaints with Caltrans, I would ask you to do so. It's dangerous. It's idiotic. I mean, nobody else could get away with it. Can you imagine a private person digging a hole in the middle of the street and leaving it? No, you can't do that. So please, make inquiry. The other related issue with Caltrans, and I've complained about this on and off for the last 30 years, is if you head eastbound on Ojai Avenue, the speed limit is 35 miles per hour until you get to the Bank of America. If you head westbound, the speed limit is 25 miles an hour until you get to Clough Vista Park. I know of no other place in America where the speed limits differ by 10 miles an hour depending on the direction in which you are going. The idea of having a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit through our downtown, through any portion of our downtown, is intolerable. And I would again ask you to contact Caltrans. If that doesn't work, contact our state legislators. If that doesn't work, contact the governor. But this is not safe for the people, and you have some responsibility to making sure that we're all safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Len.
May I make a request, Lenny? Lenny, could you forward me those emails again? I have them somewhere, the ones that you already sent to Caltrans, and I'll forward them to
Well, I don't remember if I sent them to Caltrans. I sent them several inquiries to our county legislator's office, and never got a response. Even, I send an email, I'm promised something will happen, nothing happens. I send another email, promise something will happen, nothing ever happens.
But if you have it handy, can you forward it?
I will try and find them in my morass of emails.
And I will too.
I will get a hold of you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Len. Next, we have Barbie Kafka, and then Randy Roth, and then Bill Miley. And we have 5 comments left, so it's okay with council. We'll go ahead and finish those. Okay.
Okay. Hello. Good evening. I'm Barbie Kafka. My name is Barbie Kafka. I thought I could have an opportunity. An opportunity to talk about some issues this evening. It's about the community park. There were things that I had noticed that I think it's important to talk about. Rick is the person that takes care of the coffee room.
Rick is the person that takes care of
But that's not enough. We need more help for other little things.
We need more than just the help of the coffee room there, and we have some other things that we
I
help
was
with.
walking downtown,
I walked in
and then I
downtown.
noticed that old man that lives in the park,
I noticed there's a man that lives in the county.
and my heart broke.
My heart is broken.
Because his sweater and his pants were soiled. They were really badly soiled. And I told my son, what is going on?
What's going on with
What's happening?
What's happening? I asked him.
So I was thinking, but maybe we need a person, maybe like myself, become an outreach person that need to improve things, have things personal to help the people so they are more comfortable.
For the comfort?
They need more attention. What I'm thinking is it'd be a good idea that we have a washer and dryer and a shower there. What if it's been? I think it's a good idea because we'd be within the community. And also, it would help the people who cannot work. There's one woman that has a heart condition. So I think it's really a good idea. Although that coffee room, I think it's too small.
I think the coffee room is too small.
We need more room.
We need a bigger room.
So that maybe we can have the table and a kitchen. I noticed there's one room like that. Why? So we can have more events, like a class for sign language,
more events, a class for sign
fun
language.
games. Event like talk about education, smoking, things like that. I think this is a good idea to have more informed. So we really need a big room, but I really think the most important thing is to have the washer and dryer and a shower. I hope this works out. I felt very badly when that happened to that man, and I realized Rick cannot do that.
Rick himself can't do all this.
Insufficient. Me, like myself, to come out, reach, to help that person. Like, here there are clothes, here there is the shower, there's the wash and dry. People need to wash their clothes, and they need to wear more often because we are living in a completely different environment. So we need more attention.
You said. Yeah, we do need more attention because some people, especially more attention because they're living in a different environment.
I think this is a good idea that we do that.
Think it'd be a good idea.
Is the light on the microphone? There should be a light on the base.
I can hear you. Yeah.
There you go.
Thank you.
That better? Go ahead. I'm just asking the city council if you can provide things like this for this encampment.
I've also noticed that one of the reasons why I'm saying is because the mobile toilets are there.
I notice it because the portable toilets are there. But they're not cleaned on a daily basis or. Some people are using them and not leaving respect for the next people to use them. Why do they leave a mess? Something needs to be done. So you're saying that one more person that was heavy helping would also. So one more person that could also help out with things like these. That outreach person maybe could help with this. We can work something like that out. Thank you. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbie. Next we have Randy Roth, then Bill Miley, and then Rachel Hunt.
Hi, I'm Randy Roth. I'm a citizen of Ojai.
Please adjust the microphone. Thank you.
Good. I'm Randy Roth, a citizen of Ojai. I'm here to express my appreciation to the new city manager, Ben Harvey, for his energetic approach towards getting the Soul Park pickleball program underway. And I encourage all the members of the city council to continue to support Ben in his efforts. Also, I'd like to express that it's really important as part of this program that we extend the bicycle path all the way out to Soul Park. As you probably know, most of the people, or many of the people who play pickleball at City Hall now, ride their bicycles. Riding bicycles out to Soul Park is not practical. It's just not feasible. It's not safe anyway. So I would encourage you to take whatever steps are necessary to obtain the funding and get the approvals to complete the bicycle path as part of the Soul Park project. Thanks.
Thank you, Randy. Next we have Bill Miley, then Rachel Hunt, and then Alan Greenberg.
Hello. This is about the Ojai Pickleball Association's initiative petition. Signing the Ojai Pickleball Association's initiative petition to take over the City Hall land on which 4 courts are located is a dangerous crack in our city government foundation. Please do not sign. On January 30th of this year, the special meeting, the City Council reduced play at the courts 2.5 days a week with a permanent closing on June 1st. It's all focused on opening the new Soul Park pickleball courts. There are 2 major problems with this initiative proposal. It removes permanently the city's control over its own land. 2, the growing sport of pickleball produces new sounds, noise, as it's being played, contaminating the surrounding area. This initiative makes pickleball play sound like fun and a healthy sport. It is, but it's a noisy sport and produces sound which becomes intruding noise for those nearby. Some employees in City Hall can hear it all day long. Some of us are concerned about the play, now including the City Council, have worked to get a development agreement with county government to build new pickleball courts at Soul Park by June of this year, starting with 6 new courts. The Pickleball Association has refused to collaborate with others concerned groups and City Council to produce a win-win deal. At the January 30th meeting, Councilmember Rule stressed the need for spirit of compromise and voted yes. I watched the meeting's video and was surprised that Councilmember Rule was so willing to compromise. Good, I thought. But, and this is what I understand, she is the one leading the initiative to take over the courts permanently. Please save city government rights to its own land and decision-making. Losing it is a bruise to the city's body. Be aware that these courts are not necessarily 100% played by people in Ojai. In a recent petition that they submitted to the City Council, 73% of the people who played there and signed are outside the city, live outside the city. So please do not sign the petition. Soul Park pickleball play will soon open. Protect our city government from being fractured. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next we have Rachel Hunt, then Alan Greenberg.
My phone got stuck off my messages. Hi, I'm Rachel Hunt, and I came to support Barbie and her requests. First off, I want to say I'm so grateful to see some increasing compassion to the people living in the encampment. Just today, a woman reached out to me who's been bringing food over there, casseroles and quiches, and is happy to cook for them when is short on some ingredients. And so I was able to bring her a pound of cheese so she could keep doing that. And she informed me just how appreciative the members are over there and how kind they are and what a joy it's been for her to be able to do that. So I also just want to encourage everybody else to just keep growing with their compassion for that and coming over there. I heard some speakers earlier kind of with a lot of fear about their children and safety here. And I myself also did grow up here and most recently was living with my 2 children before my current place across the street, directly with the 2-story house next to the field. And even before that, though, I grew up here because my family right here in this garden was displaced at times. And we spent a lot of time getting help from a little house. And so I called this my secret garden growing up. And so I really believe that, you know, we have to protect these plants and the people, but we also have to protect the most vulnerable citizens here, honestly, first, because from there that ripples out in creating a better community for all. So with regards to that, cleanliness is becoming an issue. Like she said, there was a gentleman here recently who's still here who it's a public health thing. He needs help getting clean. So I don't know if we can call a nurse at this point to check on him, or if we can just provide him, all of them, some kind of on-site shower here system and a dishwashing station. That would prevent more trash being made here, and they could keep it clean. So those two things, I think, if we could implement that as soon as possible, creatively, and I know people who could volunteer to set up systems like that. And so I think that hiring another getting more volunteers involved from Rick Rain, or possibly hiring another employee to fill in for him and come when he can't come to open the coffee room, to make it accessible and help to come up with ideas to start facilitating a shower system here and stuff like that. Anyway, so there's so much more I could say on this subject, but that's all I'll say for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel. Next, we have Alan Greenberg.
And I don't need any notes. Now you can start the clock. Obviously, you know why I'm here. I'm very disappointed in the results of the resolution. I think since last November, it could be described as a three-ring circus, a roller coaster ride, and other pejorative adjectives that I can't come up with at the present time. I do appreciate Andy's summation that he made at the last meeting. I thought it summed up the issue perfectly. Actually, it would make a great documentary of how not to conduct a situation like that, but unfortunately, not all of it was filmed. I can't help but remember when I came to the January 9th meeting, where only myself and Robin Gerber were in attendance, except for a mass of the ceasefire people who insisted on public speaking when no public speaking was permitted. And yet they were allowed to speak for 6 minutes, video their speech with all kinds of placards and boards and posters behind them so that they could create a propaganda video. And I can't help what happened after that. I went to the Oxnard meeting, and they all went there and were joined by an equal number of their people, and they proceeded to speak there and demonstrate. And every time someone spoke up against it, they booed and hissed. And finally, after an hour of that, the mayor cleared the room, and then they decided not to put it on the agenda. I called the city clerk about 2 weeks ago, and I asked him if they had come back again to try to pursue it, and he told me no. He doesn't know why they haven't come back, but if they do, they will not be permitted to speak, and they will be ushered out of the building, which you people had no gumption to do. And in closing, I'll just say that I think another resolution should be considered before you bring forward the ordinance about the future resolutions. With all the women we have on this council, I think it would be a resolution to affirm the Geneva Convention that rape is a violation, a war crime, and not just rape in Israel, but rape in Ukraine and other third world countries. I think it would be appropriate resolution to put forth before the public before you allegedly are going to forbid any future resolutions except in 93023.
We will move on to consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve?
Mayor Sticks, we actually have a couple comments online if
Okay,
you'd like
can
to.
we will return to the rest of them after our first agenda.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Motion to approve consent?
I'll move to.
Second. Okay. Okay, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, all right. And I would just like to say congratulations to, Sonia. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, and really we're excited to have your enthusiasm and expertise and wisdom and emotional intelligence, so thank you.
And I'll just add to that, congratulations, Sonia, welcome. And for those of you who don't know her, she really brings a unique perspective, and that is of someone who has a background in fine art, in jewelry. Her jewelry is amazing. And so I'm really excited to have you as a part of our commission.
And she has a history background, too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just realized we have 2 comments on consent, so can we go ahead and take those? First, it's on 8E and H. So first we have Bill Miley on consent item E, and then Brian Akins on consent item H. No, okay, never mind, Brian. Just Bill, thank you.
Hello. This has to do with items E, which is the housing report.
Please press the button on the microphone.
Report seems comprehensive, shows Ojai City continue. Thank you. I'll take it turned off. Continues to put a lot of energy into housing. I do have one specific item needing clarity. In chart D, which is on page 1E-9, item 16, entitled Retention of Affordable Units. And the objective is facilitate and improve affordable housing. And I provided a screenshot of the chart in my email to you. I suggest that this work item needs redirecting, as ADUs listed in this report are all at above moderate income levels. They're not affordable necessarily. And when illegal or non-compliant, and they became compliant, we didn't know whether they were affordable when they were non-compliant. It would seem this effort could and should be focused on older housing, on housing of lower income folks needing rehab, not ADUs. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, all right, we will move on to our discussion item. Item number 2, adoption of City Council goals and objectives for fiscal year 2024-25. We have a staff report. Mr. City Manager, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and I'm going to wait a moment for the presentation to be put up on the screen. And I'm going to be joined in this presentation with, by the Assistant City Manager on a couple slides, so thank you very much. Okay, so we are here to talk about the formulation of our City Council goals. I would like to point out to those in the audience that there should be hard copies of the proposed goals and objectives out there if you are wanting to see that. Council should also have a hard copy in front of them at the dais. Everybody have that? Okay, thank you. All right, so next slide, please. So why are we doing this? Well, this is one of the most important things that you do as a city council. This is how you set your policy priorities. You are a policy board, and you are giving direction to me and the city attorney and the rest of your city staff, and so we're here to formulate that policy. This is an amazing opportunity for you as a body to think about how you want to work together. What policy objectives do you have in common that you can give to us to work on for the next 12 months? It's a great opportunity. This is also a time for us to figure out what's going to be what I'm calling in bounds and what's going to be out of bounds. Basically, your goals and objectives become the roadmap. This is what we're going to be working on. If we're going to be talking about things that are not within the goals and objectives, you have a couple choices. You can either modify your goals and objectives, or you can think maybe this is not the time to talk about whatever you want to talk about. So, in bounds, out of bounds. This is also, as I'm pointing out, a living document. So during the year, if we do need to tweak it, we certainly can. Next slide, please. So Mr. Assistant City Manager, you want to cover the next couple slides? These are in your area.
Thank you very much for that. So these are somewhat definitional to set the table, so we're all talking the same lingo as we go through the exercise tonight. But goals defined, so that's the top line item that you have on the bullet points in the sheet that has the Roman numerals. So these goal statements are somewhat items that should be evergreen. They should be more enduring and last multi-year. So these goal statements are things like having a responsive and effective city staff, something that would carry over obviously beyond 1 year. So in the larger context, these goals are things that would carry over an extended period of time. And they should describe the broader conditions and attributes of how the city will be different once these goals are worked towards. So there's an end outcome that we're looking to seek, or that outcome might be something that is sustaining, that might hold true 10 years from now or 20 years from now. The goals should inform the development of the underscored objectives that we'll be looking at tonight. And we'll talk more about resources. So these goals, the objectives, will inform how resources are allocated, because we have a finite amount of staff time, we have a finite amount of monetary resources and time, not just staff time, but also council time, commission time as well. So this will help inform how the budget is developed, how the city manager allocates staffing resources as well. If you can go ahead and skip to the next slide. So the objectives, so these are the bullet points that are underlying the goal statements. These are getting more specific to results of how these goals will be achieved. They're specific usually to performance or operational activities across the city. And then these are going to be used to inform a work plan that the city manager will develop that's more task-oriented. So when we get to the task level, that gets very detailed into a specific task that has a finite timeline and also resources if there's a monetary need or staffing need. And then that will get into the assignment at the staff level of who's the point person on those. So the objectives are those bullet points. Some of them might be finite, some of them might be more open-ended of something that we'll look to do across multiple use areas.
Okay, thank you.
Next slide.
I'm going to jump back in here. Who the heck wrote these goals? Well, the short answer is Carl and I did. But we did this based upon your prior Dotmocracy session, which was held back in August before I was here. Mr. Almeida pointed out to me that this was more of a task-focused discussion. And so, you know, it was more objectives that were gleaned from that, less overall goals. But basically, we looked at that. We also looked at our individual conversations with you. We looked at concerns that we have as administrators, and we put together what you have in front of you. It's just a jumping off point. You can edit, you can delete, you can add, or you can hit pause on any of these. They're just suggestions. Next slide, please. So to that end, some of these goals or objectives may need some additional work, or they may merit a completely separate discussion. They may need more fleshing out before we move forward. We accept that. We understand that. This is probably not the only goal and objective session that you will have. I think that you might need at least 2. You might need more. You really want to make sure you get these right. You also may find that there's a priority that's missing. That could be. So, next slide. Suggestions on how to go through this. What I don't want to do, and I don't think you want to do, is have me read every goal and objective. I'm not going to do that to you. Everybody here can read. Everybody's seen the document. The agenda's published. What I might suggest is we go through as a council the individual goal categories, see if there are any particular objectives that, well, first of all, agree that you like that category. You might not. Secondly, you know, decide if you want to keep the objectives that are there, modify them, add, delete, etc. Poor Carl. I have subjected him to doing real-time edits here. So if you do decide that you want to wordsmith something, we're going to test how fast he can type and how quickly we can throw it up on the board. But we do that because we know that the words matter, and we may need to see that. What we also are hoping you don't do this evening, please, are separate recommendations or motions on each individual category. It'd be perfectly fine if you just give head nods as consensus. And again, we may end up continuing, that's the wrong term, continuing the discussion to a future meeting. The city attorney can help us get that right if we get to that point. So that's kind of, we're hoping this is maybe a little more informal without getting at the point where we're having a lot of crosstalk and making it hard to follow. Remember, Carl is trying to follow what you might be saying, so please try to run everything through the mayor, and let's keep it one person talking at a time if we could. Next slide. So I'm not going to repeat myself. We know that we might need more than one. I think the only thing I want to add here is that if you do have to have an additional session, your budget calendar will allow for it. We've deliberately built it with some space, so don't worry. That's normal. That's expected. Next slide. So the end goal will be that these goals are built into your proposed budget. Your spending plan should reflect your goals. We're then going to develop a work plan where we're going to assign a resource to the various objectives, and we're going to put a timeline on it, and we're going to come back and report out to you on a quarterly basis so you know how we're doing. We're going to tell you if we're having some roadblocks or some issues, just so the council and the community can know where we sit. And with that, I would want to turn it over to you, Mayor, and start the process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. City Manager. Any questions from council? Okay, we will go ahead and move on to public comment then. First, we have Brian Akins, then Starchild, and then Kathy Nolan.
Well, I get up here to thank you for something, and that thank you became even more important when our Mr. Harvey, our city manager, said, and if it's not on the list, then you either need to change the list or forget about it. Since I came to the meeting last August and made a pitch for including the update on the commissioner methods of bringing commissioners on, which is, as you can see, is sorely needed. And then when the top 40 came out, we didn't make the cut. So I know he's a man who has a real penchant for history. I'm looking to talk to him about the house he grew up in Long Beach. I'm a Lakewood class of 71 alumni, so there's a little bit of a rub there, I imagine. But anyway, I did want to thank you for focusing on getting the commission guidelines put together. It was a long, laborious process, and we all learned from it, and I'm happy with how it turned out. I will tell you, I can put numbers to my thanks. My thanks are for the fact that we have 4 commissioners that have been appointed in this group. Rick Bisaccia, recommended by Rachel. Craig Walker by Councilwoman Lang. Craig Walker by Councilmember Whitman. Loren Sims by Mayor Betsy, Mayor Sticks. And then Sonia, who just came after all this time. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I love the goals that have been set. I love the fact that it's already in process, many of these things. I saw the accounting requisition for improving the accounting department. And in the quick 1 minute, I want to reclaim my time from the commissioner comments, and I just want to thank you as a city council for supporting the placement of the Harry Hunt Senior plaque on the side of the Ojai jail, and thank those of you that were able to be there. That was a truly wonderful event that took place. We enjoyed having you there. Very well attended. People are stopping me, telling me just how much that meant to them to have that take place. So again, thank you all very much.
Thank you, Brian. Next, we have Star Child, then Kathy Nolan, then Betsy Van Light.
Hello, good evening. Today I brought my Habitat for Humanity shirt. I got it when I volunteered for a build in Port Hueneme, and I'm really looking forward to volunteering to build here in Ojai, and I'm glad to see that as a priority on the agenda. Well, I'd be lying to you if I said I did this intentionally, but my shirt is a little bit wrinkly. And the reason why is because to do the laundry, I run to the laundromat after work. And I used the wrong one, 3 from the right on the top. Doesn't get as hot as the others. And I'm really looking forward to having a house here in Ojai with a washing machine and with a dryer. And when I'm volunteering to build housing for people who can't afford kind of moderate income housing, I'm building housing for them, not for me, because I don't qualify. But I don't get sour grapes about it because when we're building housing, low-income housing, it's not taking away housing from people who are higher income. Just like building higher income housing or moderate income housing is not taking away spots away from people who have low income. There's enough space everywhere in this city for everybody to live and everybody to have decent housing. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you, Star Child. Next, we have Kathy Nolan, then Betsy Van Light, then Garrett Clifford.
Mayor, so we're back to public comment now?
No, these are discussion items number 2.
This is part of discussion item number 2? Yep. And then after that, we're going back to the public comment?
No, then
No.
we'll discuss number 2, and then after that we'll go back to public comment.
Okay.
The commenters, if we could jump in, the commenters are commenting on the goal setting and what goals they would like to see the council focus on or so forth. And then we'll return to general public comment, not on the agenda.
Yeah, I understand.
After, yeah.
It just didn't feel that, okay, I guess these comments are related somehow. All right. Okay. Whatever.
Council members, staff, Kathy Nolan, as you mentioned. Is that better? Oh, okay, there we go. Anyway, I'm here representing the Ojai Valley Green Coalition, and specifically, I know on goal number 8, which is managing the unhoused encampment, there is mention of the Ojai Valley Green Coalition and an MOU. But I'm also here just to provide a quick recap of our original intention and proposal that we actually made in May of 2022, which was to help create with the City of Ojai a hub of information systems in place here on the 8-acre City Hall campus, a park-like place of beauty, a place to honor the local ecology and environment, a place to partner with the community and other nonprofits, and a place for education and learning for all ages, locals and visitors. Within that framework, I wanted to say that we are flexible and able to work with what arises and what needs may change. An example being our unhoused community, which grew from 3 tents to many over the course of the year and a half we worked on the community engagement portion of the master planning through the community service grant that we received through the city. We're open and ready to embrace what comes our way as it supports our mission of effective collaborative leadership and partnering and contributes to a thriving, regenerative, and resilient community. We ask that you consider that the MOU with the Ojai Valley Green Coalition, including to continue with the, at a minimum, year 2 of the master planning process and preliminary programming, which will ultimately work as tools to develop long-range strategies for the transformation of the City Hall campus. And just really quick personally, I wanted to say that I'm in favor of protecting and managing our community forest for its beauty, shade, for sequestering carbon and more, and playing a big role in the sense of place of making Ojai Ojai. The trees are a major contributor to that. And I also wanted to say I'm in favor of complete streets, catering to all users, providing safety, considering the environment through street trees, stormwater capture, extending the park-like public place, and please, whatever you do not put AI into the transportation realm. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Next, we have Betsy Van Light, then Garrett Clifford, and then Bill Miley.
Good evening, one and all. Betsy Van Light, and I'm an Ojai resident, And tonight I'm wearing my hat of the Ojai Valley Green Coalition board member. Actually, first I want to just go off script and say I love goals and objectives. I spent my entire career helping build, manage, revamp programs, big initiatives, and we did it with goals and objectives. I mean, it just keeps you on a path. So thank you for that. As you heard from Kathy, she sort of gave the big picture of where we've started with the city, with the city campus property, and the big picture of where we're going or hoping to go in terms of master planning. I want to dive a little bit more into Goal 8, which is the one that is about management of the unhoused encampment. So it has an objective about partnering with the Green Coalition to strengthen stakeholder communication and involvement concerning the campus. And then there's an objective about restoring the Oak, Woodland, and Creek area on the land. So we're really excited to step fully into the partnership and help make those objectives happen. A lot of community members want this to happen, and we really see ourselves as working with community members who live in the tent encampment and many who don't. And I think I can also safely say that this will be a benefit for the oak trees, the scrub jays, the milkweed, the monarch butterflies, all of the beings that live on this amazing property. In fact, if you stop for a minute and listen, there's insects, and I think we've been hearing frogs. This is an amazing place as an ecosystem, and we can be part of it. And so let's get this MOU going. Let's roll up our sleeves. Let's do this work, because we're really excited to help a couple of these objectives in Goal 8 really come to fruition, and come to fruition quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Betsy. Next we have Garrett Clifford and then Bill Miley.
Hi, I'm Garrett Clifford. I'm an Ojai resident, 36 years, and I'm talking about goal number 5, which is global warming, and of course I'm talking about trees. Trees seem to be getting a strong focus tonight, and they should. I just want to step back in time a little bit to kind of give people the perspective of what has been accomplished to date in Ojai with regard to trees and maintaining our tree canopy, because the majority of it has all been volunteer work. In early 2000, some concerned citizens who were, one of them's in this room right now, Kathy Nolan, Tom Bostrom, and Tucker Adams, put together a committee that advised the city. That's an ad hoc committee that advised the city on tree-related issues. And this was a committee that worked well with the Planning Commission and the City Council. And through the work of this council with staff in the city, they developed a plan. And the plan was to come up with a community forest management plan. And that plan was written by those 3 individuals and a few others who are no longer here, totally gratis. I mean, it was volunteer efforts all the way. And this is a copy of the document. And the document goes through every neighborhood, documenting every tree and its condition, and then designating trees that should be planted in certain areas of the city because they would survive better than others. And this is a key component of being a Tree City USA. Without this document, we could not be a Tree City USA. And so once that document was completed by that committee, it was accepted and was voted in 2009 as a city document. You can find it on the city website. And just recently, Jan Scow has gone through and updated parts of it. So it's there, and it's a valuable document. It tells you a lot about what we do in the city and where we plant and how we plant. In 2007, Ojai Trees was formed. And Tom Bostrom was the gentleman that started Ojai Trees. He was a local landscape architect. And Tom was the driving force behind the city forest management plan and just contributed just a heck of a lot of time to the city. He cared about the city. He cared about the urban canopy. In 2009, the community forest management plan was accepted.
Thank you, Garrett. Thanks, Garrett. Thank you. Next, we have Bill Miley.
Hello again. A couple of things on the goal statements. On goal number 5, I would just like to say that 20 to 30 years ago, my wife Cookie and I helped water trees in Ojai, downtown Ojai. We used the city water truck once a week to water about 20 oak trees. Yes, thank you. And on goal 8, if you go down 7 items, continue to work with the County of Ventura and nonprofit supportive services. I'd like to see you add, as an example, Help of Ojai. Not just generic supportive services, but put help, the specific Help of Ojai in there. Okay. I've read the proposed, this is my general comment. I've read the proposed goals and objectives. They certainly look impressive, bureaucratic, relevant to a small city, but they do not seem relevant to a recent council member workshop, the voting that you met. They don't seem to address the results of the workshop on goals and objectives. I attended the workshop. These goals seem more administrative than policy, and I understand the council is tasked with policy and choices and decisions. So I have a copy of the results. I got a copy of the results. Somebody took camera pictures, and I put them in the statement to you. So I'd like to read them over. I would imagine that these can be blended into the administrative report, getting them personalized to this small city. There were 10 of them that had at least 3 votes, 4 votes, and 5 votes. The ones that had 3 votes were council protocol workshop, revenue and tax options, sales tax, capital budget fiscal model, complete general plan, affordable housing workshop, climate action plan, growth management philosophy, pickleball, soul park, ATP project, phase 1, city hall campus, homeless services, fire hardening education and outreach, and citywide speed limit, which I don't see anywhere in the administrative statements. Blending these 12 goals into the administrative report would seem best for priority goals for 24-25 for our personalizing to our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Any comments online? Well,
There are no comments at this moment. Let's take one moment. At this time, if there's anyone online that would like to raise their hand, please do. Oh, we have one comment from Renee. Renee, please unmute.
Good evening. I would like to say I was very happy to read this document. I think it's a good start, as you said. I like the idea of having a roadmap of where we're headed and projects that we know the city is accountable and responsible to the electorate for. And that also stuff doesn't get snuck in as individual priorities or favors that people want to do for their constituents. I'd like to see this be a document that we do use going forward to set the agendas with, so we can get some things done. I have seen a lot of spinning of our wheels and going back and forth on a lot of issues. And I think this is a great way to lead and manage. One thing I agree with, what Bill Miley was just saying is I was there at that council workshop where they talked about priorities, and I noticed the speed limit idea wasn't on there. I'm not sure where that would be incorporated. And I also saw that we have spent so much time talking about pickleball as a community and the city council, and I didn't see anything in here about Parks and Rec or Parks and Rec priorities for the community. The other thing I'd like to see is that idea of protocols, collaboration, working together. I haven't seen, I don't see that anywhere in the document, but I do see how you called out working in collaboration with the Green Coalition and working in collaboration with the business community to talk about economic development. I really like that inclusivity, rather than, we give them a task and then they do it, and then we either give them more money to do it or we don't. I like that idea of working together. I think that's a great way to include people into the discussions about how to make our city a better city. The last thing I want to say is I do think our boards and commissions are suffering. I heard recently that the Park and Rec Commission, it hasn't met since June, and the city changed from 5 members to 7 members. And I think it's going to be difficult for a Park and Rec Commission to even get to 7 members. So I think we need to rework our boards and commissions and not politicize our boards and commissions and appointments, but allow people to serve in a collaborative way. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Is that it, Will?
That appears to be it.
Okay, and just as a piece of information, our code of ethics is coming up, I believe in April or May, as an agenda item.
Yes, we have it tentatively scheduled for April. City Attorney and I are just discussing this.
Okay, great. All right, well, let's move on to discussion, and as we mentioned, let's go goal by goal and stick to the topic. So let's begin with goal number 1, improve communication.
Wait a minute. Is that what we decided to do?
Yes.
When did we decide that?
Our city manager made that suggestion that we go goal by goal and have a discussion on each goal, and then we will move on.
Could we do a little bit of free?
Well, I would disagree. I just think that in order to keep the conversation focused, the discussion focused, we need to, we have 8 goals to get through tonight. So I think it's important that we focus on goal by goal. And if you want to start when you talk about goals in general, that's fine.
But I first of all, I don't agree with the order of the goals, and I have some questions, preliminary questions. And one of my questions is, there's no reason why the same subheading can't appear multiple places. For example, to me, the number 1 goal is public safety and health and safety. And I think that's supposed to be our number 1 goal in general of a city council.
Through the mayor, if I could just jump in, council member. So we do have a goal, a proposed goal. All these are proposed.
Yeah.
And we do have one of greater emergency preparedness. Now, you can change the title of that if you like. However, I will point out, actually, health and I would be careful with using health as a goal, because you actually don't have any jurisdiction over that. That's more of a county function. You don't have a health department or a health officer.
Okay, I misspoke. I didn't mean it like that. 2 speakers brought up that the 25 miles per hour goal of having that as a citywide speed limit was not in this. And so to me, the number 1 complaint consistently is traffic. That's consistent. you know, if you ask somebody, I think an average resident, well, if, what's their main concern? It's traffic and speeding and kids almost getting hit. And to me, I see that, yeah, I see that, but it's part of climate, it's part of infrastructure, it's part of yeah, I see that. But so, okay, I'm going to throw in the towel. I mean, I know that we have a roadmap to sustainable Ojai. We have we used to say that we should always have that, you know, on the wall. I mean, so.
I would
Okay.
suggest, just in terms of efficiency, that we go through goal by goal, and that when those points come up, you will have
And
an
then
opportunity to
we
discuss
can juggle
them.
them around. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And noted, and I can certainly respond, and I
Okay.
can explain the method to the madness, and you can tune it up, and that's just fine.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, let's begin with goal number 1, improve communication. On that note, who would like to begin? Councilmember Lang.
Yes, I would like to begin because this is actually one of my top priorities. And one thing that was expressed a lot when I was campaigning, and people, you know, said that they didn't really have a sense of what was going on. I am aware that there is a company by the name of Hamlet that we met at the League of Cities conference, and they, it's possible that we could work with them on a contract basis. They actually have a whole system that they use to do social media, to basically take what's happening in our meetings and create messaging from them. So I would like to ask the city manager to investigate that as an option and see if that is a possibility, because I don't think we have the staff for that. I mean, I have a background in marketing and marketing for nonprofits, and it's a big job. But if there are companies that are doing it and they work with other cities, that I think that is a way to go.
Yes, Councilmember Rule.
Yeah, so on goal 1, improve communications, it seems to me that this is it's essentially a one-way form of communication. That is the city pushing to the public. I don't see the public being able to respond back to the city in any way outside of general comments. Which I think is fine for information, but I'm as well interested in how we improve engagement, which is always a two-way communication, if not more. So we had talked about at some points, just having forums or, educational things that are like this where people can come and speak to each other, not unlike what the Green Coalition does, but more on a citywide kind of process. So that would be my comment on that, is that we need two-way communication, and we also need something that's not just communication back and forth, but real engagement. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes. This may be something that falls in somewhere else organizationally, but it's certainly a communication issue, and that is whether that I think we should work on more clear protocols about how we interact with the public, particularly in the course of public comment, so that we have very specific guidelines. Someone makes a comment, we have guidelines about how we respond, if at all. And maybe just, handling public comments in general. We need to have a framework that we agree upon.
Councilmember Francina?
Yeah, well, like tonight, even though we have a rule that the first half hour is public comment, and then after the next agenda item, we continue. But this next agenda item is going to be the entire work, the entire meeting, and the people that are on Zoom have to wait 2 or 3 hours to speak? Is that what's happening?
Just to confirm, we took all the comments. Last we checked, there were no more comments.
I think there may have been some additional commenters on Zoom who raised their hand.
There
at the
was
last
earlier.
moment.
There are no longer any comments. There's no longer any hands up currently, but we will have a chance to ask
We'll
them.
give them a chance.
So after we finish the first item,
Correct.
we
We'll
will
proceed with the
we will
current system,
proceed.
yeah.
But I mean, it seems like communication, it should always be flexible. We have to have flexibility. And if we know that it's going to be a long time to finish, even though a half hour has gone by, I mean, communication is linked to flexibility, and as far as improving communication, that's not just with the public, that's amongst ourselves as well, right? That's what we're talking about, improved communication on all levels. And I don't know how to discuss that in a public meeting.
So
because I
through the
don't wanna
mayor,
point
council member,
yeah.
maybe I might suggest an
Yeah.
objective, and I'm just listening to you talk.
Uh-huh.
Sounds like you might want to retool the agenda format. Sounds like that's part of what you're concerned about. Am I right about that?
Yeah, and I mean, because of the Brown Act, it's difficult for council to communicate amongst ourselves. But when I send out an email and I copy one council member on it, or the mayor, I expect a response from that council member, or some kind of communication through through our city manager. And many times it's like that doesn't happen. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. Can we, let's take turns, and then we can have a second round if we get to that. Are you
Yeah.
finished, council member?
I'm finished for now.
Okay. Well, I think that it's great that we have a newsletter, and also that improve the city website. I think that would be great. So I was just wondering, in terms of cost, and for all of these things, should we not inquire about cost tonight, or?
If through the mayor, yes, you're the mayor, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, the idea here is to see what falls off the table, then we can later come back with a cost estimate.
So don't ask tonight, just.
I wouldn't, I would say dream this evening. It's better, and then we can go back and evaluate. If the dream's too big, we can maybe come back and shorten it to a nap.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, thank you. And I think these are all great, especially the first two are much needed. So we each had it one turn. If anybody has any final comments before we move on to goal 2, Councilmember Rule.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I understand what Suze is saying, that once again, this is not, that this actual meeting is a really good example of sort of what she's talking about, that we actually held 2 people on hold for general comments, and they're now gone. Flexibility, I mean, and I know that this is what you were getting at a while ago, but it just didn't, I kind of got it. Let me just say that, we could have made an exception, but there's something, and so I agree with bringing sort of how this process, how the council communicates among themselves during council meetings. There's all kinds of things we can talk about in the early stages of the game. I think the mayor and I spoke about, having limits on the amount of time. Maybe that's a good idea. Maybe that's not. Holistic conversations are very, very valuable. But when you're chopped off and put at the end of the line, then you have no ability to have a holistic conversation, because you can't go back to the point that you were at before and try to engage more deeply with that conversation. So that, of course, is problematic when you give somebody, a council person 3 minutes to talk and then you move down the line. There is no holistic conversation. Is that something that we want? Can we weigh the pros and cons? You know, I think that this objective on improve communications was just the city to the public, and then we kind of talked about it being two ways. But I think also we need to talk about how the council communicates during a council meeting. For instance, I have seen cases where, everybody is addressed by their first name except for one person. And that is an uncomfortable situation for that one person, especially if they are in front of us looking for a decision to be made. And we're talking to the person who's on one side and calling them by their first name, and talking to the person who's on the other side and calling them by Mr. It's a power differential that isn't fair. So I think we should talk about that as well, whether or not, many councils refer to each other formally, and they refer to the audience formally, because perhaps it's a sign of respect, perhaps it's not. That having been said, I think that how these meetings go and the communication styles within these meetings are an important objective to have. So I would certainly second Councilmember Francina's idea that we think about that. We've never done that. We're 5 new people sitting together. We're 8 new people sitting together. We should have that discussion on how we have discussions. So thank you.
If I could just have a quick housekeeping moment. Mr. Alameda, are you splashing down some of these within the category? You're taking, okay, good. We'll compare afterwards. So, okay, good. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, so I don't know that this fits this particular category, but I'm not sure it does any others. So it's also important that we improve our communications with the multiple other jurisdictions that do things within the valley. School district, water boards, the MAC, lots of agencies, and I think we tend to respond when things come up, and I think we should be a little more proactive in being on their radar and their being on our radar.
We ready to move on to goal number 2? Encourage organizational development. Who would like to begin?
Can I add one thing
sure,
quickly,
yeah.
Mayor? And just Mr. Almeida pointed this out to me. There is no rhyme or reason as to the goal 1, goal 2, one being more important. It's just how they were splashed down on the paper. So
That's what I was trying to say.
I
didn't know how to ask it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
Okay, thank you.
we'll move on to goal number 2, encourage organizational development. Councilmember Lang?
Yes, thank you. Well, I think to Councilmember Rule and Councilmember Francina's point, I think this could be underneath this goal. One of the objectives could be re-evaluating the structure of our meetings, our city council meetings. And I'm remembering back a long time ago in 2023, Betsy Van Light actually brought some recommendations in one of our public comments about different ways to I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you out, but it was a really good suggestion, so I'm giving you props. That there are different things that we could do, as in putting agenda items and motions up on as a visual reference, so that anyone could see exactly what the motion is, or having, to Councilmember Rule's point, time limits for council members speaking. So I think there are some things that we could put under the organizational development. In addition to that, I like these objectives, in particular the media training, because there are so many things. One thing I've struggled with personally is, because of the Brown Act, there are limitations to what we can post online or what we can like or comment on in social media. And so that can be a challenge of knowing exactly what the limits are. And also, I think there are just some basic, I want to give you a really big compliment, City Manager, because you have already put into place things like Microsoft Office and moving us toward more of a digital work environment in our staff. And so I think you've already done a lot that I just want to also take this moment to publicly appreciate. And I think that that's going to be really important for us moving forward and for the future endeavors that we have, the future goals that we have. So.
I'd like to speak next. Mayor Pro Tem?
Are we on to organizational development?
We're still on goal number 2.
Which is organizational
Oh,
development.
okay. I thought we were just talking about goal number 1.
No, we're on 2.
Okay. Yeah, I got a few comments on the list that's here. I do have some concern about contracting services out. I think we should look at those on a case-by-case basis. One of my concerns is that we suffer from loss of institutional knowledge when we have staff that's in our employ and then we shuffle out to another organization. They don't have the, I think we also potentially suffer loss of control in terms of, well, now we've entered into a contract with somebody and we'd like to have, flexibility, say, in how the trolley routes are run, and now we got to go back and negotiate a new contract. So I would like to look at those things on a case-by-case basis before we decide to contract out. And I think, we should also look at probably new services that we haven't contemplated in the past. On the recruitment of a public works director, I would like for us to look for a civil engineer. It may cost us more money to get a public works director who has a civil engineer license, but it potentially saves us in the long run. I know I've worked with a lot of cities where their public works director is an engineer. And, in the past, we've had to retain a civil engineer as an outside contractor. And then on the economic development through the Chamber of Commerce, I'm not necessarily against that idea, but I would like to see staff bring us back with proposals on, who is available, what type of services are available that could educate us on how to attract businesses to the city of Ojai, which pay jobs that are something substantially more than a workforce wage. And so maybe there's a role for the Chamber of Commerce to play in that, but I'd also be interested in seeing, well, are there professional services or consultants that can help us pursue that goal of better paying jobs in the valley?
May I ask a question?
Well, would you like to take a turn now?
Just a question. Do we know, or can you find out which of the past public works directors had a civil engineer license? And could we have a better understanding what that means? And I'm not sure, because I've gone through four or five public works directors, and I'm curious if any of them.
Sure, it's my, sorry, through the mayor, it's my quick understanding that that's not been a requirement here in the past. I don't think that maybe you've had one historically. I'm not aware of a recent one. Being a civil engineer means you actually have the wet stamp from the state of California. You're able to sign off on plans. It generally is a credential that does command a higher premium than what we currently are paying for our department heads.
Yeah, so at this moment, we're just discussing, we're not necessarily all of us approving. I mean, it may be a wonderful idea, but I don't have enough understanding to make that a requirement.
Yeah, and just to be
Yeah.
clear, it wasn't my proposal that we make it a requirement, but we include it within our search image if we
Understood.
can if we can economically find somebody who has an engineering degree and thereby avoid the expense of hiring engineers to approve plans, that we should at least look at that.
Okay, thank you.
Would you like to make any comments, Councilmember Francina, on this section?
Not right now.
Okay. Councilmember Rule?
When it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 7th bullet point: activate agenda management system software tool. Is that agenda management for council agendas or for all agendas, or do you have an agenda? Just
Through
a
the
question
mayor.
for there. Yeah.
So what's evolved in the local government scene over the last probably 10 years is a tool that allows for queues and for version control in the production of the city council and the board agenda. What we do currently is completely manual. We literally email back and forth in the review and the approval process, and we have all types of issues, as you might imagine, when you do that. This actually has work queues, alerts, controls. It's the best practice, and it's a tool. We're using a software tool currently called Granicus. It's an additional module that we could activate. That would be the most cost-effective way to do it. We could go to a completely different tool, but I'd recommend just staying with Granicus since we already have it and just expanding.
Okay, and is that something that the council would need training on, or we would just get a
the council would
walkthrough?
just, and the public would, sorry to crosstalk through the mayor, the council and the public would just see the benefit.
Okay, so this is behind the scenes. This is
Absolutely,
okay,
but we would
okay.
have better control over our product. And we
Okay.
also would have some functionality that we don't have now. One thing that you get with an agenda management system is you're able to do cool things like link to a past agenda or an item, easily have hyperlinks within your agenda reports. It's just a very nice function.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a great kind of a great database system as well. So a lot of this seems to be, the upgrading of technology and just streamlining using, available technology. So I certainly support that, because that will give you more time to do the things that you guys do uniquely, as opposed to, doing the paperwork, so to speak. So I certainly support that in general across the board. And yeah, I mean, yeah, I also support, the idea of trying to figure out the places that the Chamber of Commerce can support us, because once again, we do have a very small staff, and our bread and butter are small businesses. So, a lot of people that make any kind of income in this city are the small businesses. So, yeah, I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Well, my number one priority is the third one, to develop a proposed city compensation policy. I think that is really important, and I think it's really important that we find and retain wonderful staff that we already have. So we want to keep you. And I know that was a concern of our previous city manager, James Vega, that we needed to, get up to snuff in that area so that we can attract the wonderful people whom we have. And in terms of the Chamber of Commerce, from what I understand, 5 years ago when it was agreed to fund it, it was seed money. It was money to get off the ground for a couple of years. I think it's been about 5 years now. Several $100,000 we've given to the chamber in the past 5 years, and so I think it's time that the chamber is independent, as we had decided that several years ago, and that is privately funded. I also agree with Councilmember Lang that we need media training, and I'm concerned about the cost. I'd like to know about that specifically with City Council and what's okay to post and what's not okay to post. Anybody? Okay, Councilmember Lang, and then Councilmember.
Well, as far as items that help city staff and the city manager to function better, more efficiently, I don't know what you need from us, but I trust your judgment and would approve that. As far as the chamber goes, it seems like, we can't just make a decision on that without further information and discussion. So I don't know if the mayor's words are considered, there's no motions being made at this time, right? What's happening right now?
Yeah, Mayor and Council, that's correct. No hard decisions are being made tonight. This is what are we going to put on our to-do list for the future? So what I've heard is economic development opportunities, including looking at the chamber contract and what the chamber can do, but also what can others do, and then make a decision going forward regarding funding for the chamber and other economic development provisions. So putting it on the agenda is what I've heard, but not beyond that.
Then we're each offering our opinion, but no hard decisions are being made.
Let me expound a little bit through the mayor, sorry. So I think I'm going to take what the city attorney said, and I might translate some of this into a new objective within this goal, or a couple new objectives probably. That's what I'm hearing. The dance will be trying to make sure we don't have too many objectives, but that's where I'm going to end up with these, and I think that they're, as the city attorney pointed out, will come back as council decisions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Councilmember Lang.
I don't mean to come back.
Well, actually, to Councilmember Francina, we're on the same page. I actually had a question. Could we make a motion tonight to ask the staff to move forward with bringing back to council some of these items that would relate to staff efficiency, like the implementation of Microsoft Office, for example?
So through the mayor, if I could, so what we're actually going to do is we're going to bring back this list to you that you're going to finalize, and then once the chairs stop moving, then we're going to develop it into the work plan and move forward. So that's kind of the safety net I want to give you this evening, to be a little loose and free. Mostly I'm looking for head nods as to how to modify this document, knowing that some of the goals and objectives definitely will be having a life in front of you down the road. Have I made it more confusing?
No, you didn't. I'm realizing, like, you've said this, and I just wanted, I think, additional clarification, so thank you. Now I understand.
Are we ready to move on to goal number 3?
Well, yeah.
Yes?
I mean, you must have had some reason to put the last bullet, advance city economic development through a professional service agreement with the Ojai Valley Chamber of Commerce. I mean, I'm assuming that you spoke with Jamie Fleming, and there was some history, a reason, logic behind this. So I just want to make clear that I'm not, even if 5 years ago it was seed money, things have changed, and I don't know if there's more that we should be doing to support them, so. Yeah,
so through the mayor, yes, everything on here, there was a reason for it putting on here. These are mostly they're on here because these are ultimately policy decisions, and so perhaps with the chamber, because I've kind of heard some different things, I'll write up an objective where that returns to you as a concept review and a decision to make, and then possibly also based upon what I heard, we'll do some research on the staff side and come back to you with some options on how to address particularly economic development outside of nurturing your existing businesses. I think that's kind of, but I'm going to confer with Mr. Alameda and make sure that my understanding is his, and maybe have the city attorney jump in, and between the three of us, we have one brain that will come together and it'll work.
Yeah, what you said makes sense to me. Yeah.
Councilmember Rule.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up with the third bullet point: conduct total compensation survey with comparative agencies. So this is all about sort of it's fairness with staff, and to me it comes under also kind of the idea of ongoing reviewing of what we're offering as compensation, what the standard is around, and so that leads me to, are you comfortable with, you have to do reviews of your staff personnel, and we have to do reviews of our 2 staff. And I'm assuming that, we don't need particular software to do that. You might, I don't know. Maybe you want to link out to something, I don't know. But we should potentially, we have to review you in July. And then we have to review you in 6 months after that. So December or January of next year. I think we review the city attorney once a year. I think I remember reading that in the contract. So maybe we have some sort of schedule for that as well, just to keep the development going, and so things don't kind of fall by the wayside. Okay, thank you.
And if I could, through the mayor,
Sure.
I'll also note that some of those always on our to-do list aspects aren't listed in these goals and objectives because we do them automatically. Okay. So, for example, like on the public safety point raised earlier, funding the sheriff's department, we're going to do that, period. So for that one, yeah, we have the contractual requirements plus our standard schedule for reviews and evaluations for myself and the city manager.
I might
Thank
just
you.
jump in if I could, but what we might want to do, just responding to what I'm hearing, is come forward with a proposed approach, because there are certainly a number of ways that you can evaluate your city manager and your city attorney. I've been wire brushed a few different ways over the years.
Yeah,
I'm sure you
there's
have
a
as
couple
well.
ways too.
But you might want to use a third party to do that. Sometimes that's easier, particularly with an attorney. It's a specialized field. You do have a sitting attorney on the council, but not everybody's an attorney. So anyway, there's some suggestions if we want to.
Great, thank you. I'd appreciate that.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, just to make sure I understand item 3. I also understood this to be we've experienced, since I've been on city council, having staff members, I'll use the term poached, but a bigger fish came by with a better offer, and so I understood this, and just clarify that you're looking at what we need how we need to compensate people so that we're not experiencing turnover when that's an issue for us.
So through the mayor, let me just jump into the weeds on this one a little bit. I think it just merits some discussion. So the overall vision that I would have would that the city of Ojai would be what I'm calling an employer of choice. Okay, it doesn't mean that we're the number one choice for everybody, but it means that we're competitive. And who do we compete with? Well, we don't really compete so much with the private sector, because we have a PERS retirement that's portable, and it's portable to other local government and special district jurisdictions. And so the first step is you have to identify who you gain employees from and who you lose employees to. And it's really regional. You're not trying to say, who are we like in the state of California? No. Who do we lose people to? Who do we gain people from? And that becomes your list of what's called the comparator agencies, okay? And let's say that there are 10 to 15 in the area that are reasonable driving distances that people can go from this job to this job and not have to move and relocate, okay? So an example would be if you lived in Ojai, it's reasonable that you could stop working for the city of Ojai and work for the city of Ventura or the county of Ventura or Santa Paula or Carpinteria. You get the idea, right? So then what becomes the bigger, so you survey the job classifications across all these comparator agencies to find out what they pay. And you have to decide as a council what the philosophy should be. So where I was previously, the philosophy of that city council was they wanted to be at the median agency, which is not the average, but is the agency that's in the middle. But they didn't want to be 100% of the total compensation. They wanted to be 95% of the total compensation. It worked, okay? And the good thing about having that philosophy is that everybody knows what you're striving for. And some people are paid above that. Those people don't receive a compensation increase, sometimes for years, because they're paid above market. Some people are paid considerably below that. That doesn't mean you automatically advance them. Maybe you need to do it over time because it's too big of a jump. Does that make sense? Maybe there are some things that you're doing now that you should stop doing to make yourself more competitive. And I'll throw this out there. This city participates in Social Security. I would tell you that I would like us to stop doing that because we already provide a retirement benefit. And when you receive CalPERS as a retirement benefit and Social Security, your CalPERS benefit is lowered because of your Social Security. So most employees in the local government space prefer to just receive CalPERS and not Social Security as well. It's very rare. Very few agencies anymore offer Social Security. It's a improvement to the city's bottom line. You stop paying 6.25% across the board for everybody's salary, and the employees stop contributing that amount as well. So that's potentially, but it's also a way for you to fund if you need to make market adjustments. Now, there might be some strings that have to be untangled as part of that. I'm researching that currently.
Yeah, we're looking into that.
At the city attorney's office.
To understand, yeah, we're looking at that to understand the range of options for how, if the council made the policy choice to do that, what are the mechanics and what are the pitfalls?
But I bring this, sorry, I told you we were going into the weeds, but I was envisioning, if I got direction from the council, coming forward with a comprehensive approach. Here's how we're going to really become this employer of choice, and again, not stepping on the gas so that the city can't afford what we're doing. It might be a very phased, incremental thing over time, but that everybody, the public, the council, the employees would all know what we're striving for, and then it also becomes a recruiting tool. Oh, these people are serious. They're trying to be competitive, understanding that you're a smaller city. So that's where we fit, in the list of agencies is very important, and you guys have to help us decide that, because we're a small city. We're not looking to be the #1 paid city in the list. That makes zero sense. But you also don't want to be the last city in the list either. Somewhere in between is usually good.
We want you to do that.
Okay, we'll do it.
We do.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to goal number 3, ensure fiscal stability. Speaking of that, who would like to begin? Mayor Pro Tem?
So what's not in here on our fiscal stability is the status of our budget committee. And I think that I have a vague understanding that Mark Scott was not a fan of budget committees, and they may have stopped meeting. But I'm just not directing on whether we should have a budget committee, but I think that should be brought back to us so that we can discuss. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, we're going to do that sooner than you think.
Okay.
That's coming back. I think I have it on the working agenda, either the first or second meeting in April.
Great.
And
I'll stop talking about that.
I would love your direction on that item.
Yeah, I just want to be informed, and then we make a decision on all things budget committee. Let's see. I think that we need to develop a policy on how we address the fees charged to the public for city services as relates to residents versus non-Ojai residents who may be within our area of influence, as opposed to people who are completely foreign. And I'd like to see us stagger that so that we're that we can look at what's the most equitable way to charge fees, with the fees, the goal being that we engage in operations where revenue neutral or potentially better if the circumstances justify it. And then the other kind of related area is that we haven't updated our development fees. And these are the fees that a developer gets charged to kind of make up for broader infrastructure impacts that the city would end up, paying. I live on Signal Street, and it's not as bad right now, but we went through a time with just a ton of construction, and the condition of the road just suffered miserably, and we need to pick up the fees that that pay for restoring our public property when development has either degraded or shifted demands and all that. I don't know all the things that go into development fees, but I would like to see us do a serious study. There was some mention of a consultant who does that type of work, and I would love to see us work with someone like that.
Yeah, through the mayor, if I could
Yep.
add on that one. The fee element, as we know, there's a raft of rather draconian state laws that pose certain limits on our ability to raise fees, but we aren't without the ability to set fees that mostly recover costs and even sometimes have differential fees for residents and non-residents. That process is a rather mathematical process, so certainly a consultant is the way to go. It's beyond staff's ability and really beyond, at this point, anyone's common sense to do your own fee study, bring in a consultant who does it right, it's defensible, it's a rather thick record, and then we adopt adjusted fees. And we last did that for development impact fees in 2017 or 18, so it's been a little while, and thus would seem rife for update if that's the council's direction.
Councilmember Lang?
Yes, thank you. So I want to push the gas pedal on the grant, on the aggressively pursuing the grant opportunities. This is something I was working on with both previous city managers, and so that's definitely something. Also, I think in this category, I would like to add, before the next election cycle, having staff bring us back options for increasing sales tax. I know I'm going to be really unpopular, but our sales tax is really low, and I think there's an opportunity. And also, Larry's going to appreciate this, but looking at possibilities of raising the TOT. So just to bring those up for consideration. And I think there could be some creative ways that we could also look at creating that at taxes that relate to property. For example, I know that there are some communities that are doing vacant home taxes or fees rather, and that there are some that are doing specific taxes for second homes, and again, I'm going to be really unpopular, but I think that could theoretically go into a housing trust or some kind of way. I think if we looked specifically at fees or taxes related to homes or properties, that could support us in addressing our affordable housing crisis.
We'll take turns, then we'll get back to you.
Sorry, really quickly, if I could, Mayor, on that topic, the timing of that. So if you're going to consider, and again, we're looking for consensus. If you're going to consider potentially a sales tax increase, having just done this where I came from, I think July is when you need to have a reso.
Yeah, the hard statutory deadline is August 9th, but the
Right.
county likes them earlier, as we know from other prior ballot measures. And the window to get the community support that needs to be in hand to knowing that the money will be well spent, that window is opening now and closing soon. So if that's the directive, that would want to go quickly if we're looking to get it on the November 24 ballot.
So if the reason why I mentioned this is, we don't have priorities assigned to the goals, but if the council did want to embark upon that, that would definitely have to be at the very front of the line because of the timing with that, because it has to be on a general election.
Oh, yes.
Right.
And
Okay,
this is on the same topic, but what we got to a point with Mark Scott as our interim manager, and we all had at least some degree of interest in pursuing some of these revenue raising that would ultimately be taxes, and his recommendation, if not imperative, that it wouldn't do us much good to propose a tax without developing a sponsor, so some type of community group that was going to carry the mission of the taxes, of why the tax was good, forward. His recommendation was that the city being the sole proponent of a tax was challenging, and I'm just hoping that you'll address that with this whole concept.
Yeah, understood. I mean, I think the city attorney brought up a valid point. You need to be very clear as to what the money is to be used for and how it will be spent, but it's always good to have a champion as well. So a lot of moving parts on that.
Yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Rule?
Yeah, I was just going to sort of reiterate that we have talked about sales tax, TOT, mansion tax, vacancy tax, second home tax, all of those. We've talked about all of those. So if we could actually have an item to come back that was specific to that, where we actually make a decision and give direction, that would be great. Best to understand, yes, what are the pros and cons. I think, maybe we can have, a community organization or something to lead it, or maybe not. We're a very small town. Possibly we could find, but possibly not. So that shouldn't, I think, in any way limit it. I did notice that some of the times the discussions that we had, once again, you have to say, is this relevant to Ojai? It may have been relevant to a town of 100,000, but it's not relevant to a town of 8,000. So I always think about that when we think about best practices. What are the things that are similar and what are the things that are different, and what is relevant in there and what is not, rather than just these kind of general statements. So I think that has come up numerous times, and that will definitely help us ensure fiscal stability. So revenue is really important. And then as far as the fees go, I don't know how it's possible to do this, but I also know that there are different kinds of folks that fees affect differently. So your homeowner who's building an ADU, they don't have the same capacity for fees that a developer does. And I know that there are impact fees, that ADU builders may not have, but there are also all kinds of fees. Like I know that I was talking to a small business owner who said every time he emailed the planning commission, it was $250. That's a lot of frickin' money. Now, I don't know if he was telling me the truth, but I think he probably was, because he was a little irate about that. Certainly Lucas would know. But those kinds of things where you're trying to grow business, but you're basically putting the burden and the onus on those that probably you should be seeding them money. So I'd like to look at that as well, who we increase the fees for and who we don't, if there's a way to think about, what's being built.
So through the mayor, it's a good comment you've made. If we commissioned a fee study, that would be a policy decision. You can always decide that you're not going to charge something. Where the problem comes in is with the cost recovery. That's more of a dance, and you have to justify what you're doing. But if as a policy you decide that you want to subsidize something and reduce what it actually costs to deliver, it's a council decision, and that's the beauty of a fee study.
Yep.
Is it's very laborious. You're going to walk through everything, but you're going to have those opportunities to decide, yes, we're going to charge for this. No, we don't want to charge for that. Probably a better example would be like in recreational services. You probably don't want to get to 100% cost recovery for recreation because you're providing a benefit to the community. You want to recover some, but maybe not all.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Francina?
No, I don't have a comment at this time.
Okay. Well, my number one concern in terms of fiscal stability is to continue to build our rainy day fund, our reserves. And I know it's not on this list, but I really feel like, having been on council during COVID, when things got a little rough, pardon me? Our rainy day fund, our reserves. So ideally, building it up to $1 million, because in case there is an economic downturn, we are a tourist town, and that generally is the first thing to go, travel, when people don't have a lot of money. So I think that's really something that we should look at. And also, just in terms of natural disasters, we need to be ready, because especially with climate change, they're becoming more and more frequent. And I know it's in a different section, but in terms of fiscal stability, previous councils chose not to look at the paving, and the longer we wait, the more expensive it gets. So I think that is just in terms of maintaining stability, really getting on the paving. I agree with Councilmember Lang. We need to pursue aggressively new grant opportunities and do everything we can to find those.
Mayor?
Yes.
I think you've just justified increase in taxes, in the TOT and the sales tax. I mean,
I'm not quoting that one.
but you are justifying why we need, not just for immediate things, but for the rainy day fund. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, not now. Okay. All right, let's continue on to goal number 4, greater emergency preparedness. Who would like to begin? Councilmember Rule?
Yeah, this also harkens back to my first comment, where I think that I think we have the community to be engaged in this as well. I mean, there's CERT training. There's been sort of neighborhood captains, sort of processes and things in place. So maybe we also look to a more grassroots sort of emergency preparedness, especially given, yes, climate change and, the natural disasters that, can potentially occur. And then what it also does is it strengthens neighborhoods, so it builds leadership, all those kinds of things. So I would look at programs that also involved the public in that process.
Other comments? Mayor Pro Tem?
One of the things that I've heard a lot in talking to members of the community is that they're very concerned about an evacuation plan that avoids or mitigates, the idea that we're all going to try to get out of Ojai at one time and end up in a big traffic jam. And I know that there's been some work done on that. I think we need to, continue with that effort. The other thing that we've started on, and I hear concern that we haven't done enough about, which is hardening for fire. I know the Fire Safe Council made recommendations for homeowners. I'd like to see us evaluate those hardening measures that homeowners can take, and then, the education program. I do have some concern about, if the city has a city-focused disaster and we rely upon the county's, emergency information system, then we probably don't have a problem. But if it's like a countywide thing, I'm concerned that we'll be last on the list of people thinking, well, how's Ojai doing? So I think we need to have you know, a backup plan if it's a large scale disaster, to make sure that we've covered the Ojai communication factors.
Through the mayor, if I could just jump in real quick, and Chief, feel free to hop in on this one as well. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to recognize the resources we contract with and using them in the most efficient manner. We don't have our own dispatch. We don't have any type of emergency communication system. And so I want to avoid issues where we're pretending we do something that we don't do. What I think we probably need to do is we probably need to avail ourselves of additional county resources and maybe actually contract directly, specifically with the county in this area, such that we can get what we want. Because I really worry about us putting out information to people when in fact our response providers are saying something different in their controlling, you know, the resources on that. And Chief, I don't know if you want to jump in on that really quick or not.
I would defer to what you mentioned. We don't have a lot of resources here in the valley, and we do depend a lot on county resources. And I can say from experience that those resources are available and will be available to Ojai if something does occur.
But I'd like to pull the thread a little bit further, and it might mean that we spend a little more money. But I'm hoping that if I do that, I could maybe get some things that I'm not getting now. And I know the sheriff's department in particular has I always forget this person's name.
Patrick Maynard.
Thank you. I need to have that discussion with the gentleman and talk about what we could do that we're not doing, because I worry about that.
Councilmember Lang, and then Councilmember Francina.
Yes. So I would like, first of all, I would like to have training for us, and perhaps a public meeting that lays out our evacuation plan. I know we have one. The previous council worked really hard to develop one, but not a lot of people know about it or know what to do in the event of an emergency. So I'd like to have a community workshop where we all get trained. And then also I'm aware of the fact that the Fire Safe Council, that there are plans underway for an evacuation center to be built at Nordhoff. And I would like for us to show our support and to do what we can to collaborate with them in that effort, and have that be integrated in whatever plan we have.
Councilmember Francina.
Yeah, the one resource we do have is the Ventura County Humane Society on Bryant Street, because one of the problems is when people evacuate with their animals, it blocks everybody. So we're very lucky to have them. Yeah, they were great at the last fire.
Well, I'd like to thank Chief Parker, who's walking towards us right now.
There he is.
And our Chief of Police, Chief Newman, for coordinating. And I just want to reiterate that working together is the most important thing with the county and collaborating. So thank you both for being here and collaborating. And it would be great to get Patrick Maynard, who's our PIO, the county's PIO, to come actually and talk to us.
And forgive me, Mayor, I didn't realize that the other chief was here still as well. Is there anything that we missed, Chief, that you want to maybe cover on this?
Good evening. Thanks for inviting me up for just a moment here. But one of the beauties here in the city of Ojai is that you do have a disaster council that does work in conjunction with the city, obviously. And we have been doing preparation. We've been doing training. You have retired Assistant Chief John McNeil, who heads that up. So perhaps we could pull city council in and offer that with the city staff and get you folks involved so that we can start having those deeper conversations of evacuations, how we systematically do it. We don't push one big button and evacuate the whole valley. We systematically do it. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of practice and we've learned, but life preservation is number one. So things are moving forward, and working with Ben, we'll coordinate and we'll bring you into the fold. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief Parker, for being here. anyone,
Yeah,
Councilmember Rule?
It just occurred to me, and we've spoken of it a number of times, is when we mentioned an evacuation center at Nordhoff and we talked about communication, it occurs to me that we're still waiting to get together on a 2-2 committee, a 2-2 committee with 2 members of the school district and 2 members of the city council. And, you know, to find out, to stay abreast of what each is doing. That to me seems a huge part of communication, given that the school district, you know, includes Ojai, but it also includes part of the valley. And if that's the evacuation center, it just seems there's a whole bunch of overlap. And I would like, as I have been asking since January of 2023, for us to move forward on the 2-2 committee, which is 2 members of council and 2 members of the trustees, and they're ready to move on that as well. So thank you.
On that note, in my recollection that this council decided we didn't want to do that, to have a 2-2 committee, and I did talk to Atticus Reyes, who's the head of the board, and he said that he wanted to wait until April or so to have a joint meeting with the council. So I will circle back with him and find out.
Yeah, and I would posit that it doesn't have to be an either or. I mean, I think that we should have a meeting of all of us together, but we also need to have an ongoing committee that stays abreast of what's going on. So, yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard that. I don't know that you've been talking to Atticus, but that wasn't the last word I heard, so I will also reach out to him and see. I don't believe it should be an either or. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, okay.
Okay. Well, if that's okay on this,
I'm just thinking, Councilmember Rachel Lang, you weren't here 5 years ago, right? Right. So yes, I'll tell you what happened. Okay. You know, because you really don't know until it's happening. Yeah. Yeah. And now we are expected to go down with the ship. So we need to know what to do, because I was heavily criticized for evacuating when my daughter begged me to get out. She kept saying, "Mom, if you die, I'll never forgive myself for the rest of your life." And so I left. And Johnny, the mayor, went back and forth. His family wanted him to get out, but he would come back through the smoke, you know, and see what was going on. So yeah, now your question, as I think about it, your comment makes sense, that you want to know what to do. Yeah.
okay. All right. Well, we are. Any comments?
I'm sorry, Mayor.
Okay.
Yes,
yeah.
please, Mr. Almeida.
Through the mayor, if I can just jump in. So this is perfect timing on the discussion. The County Office of Emergency Services, run through the Sheriff's Department, has some new technology in place, and they're looking county-wide, and they're working with agencies on getting geo-targeted mapping for evacuation zones. So if there's a very localized event, say there's a hazmat spill in one area of the city, they can go more targeted on what needs to be evacuated and where to go. And that's one of the other challenges. You can't kind of prescribe where you're going to go and how you're going to get there. So you need to have designated places that will be collection points, and depending on whatever the event is, where you go may change. So we're having those discussions with them now, and that will come back once we're done and can be shaped further by the council.
Okay. Well, we are halfway through. Let's take a brief break, and then we will come back with goal number 5. Okay, we are back. If you could please take your seats, and we will begin with goal number 5, respond to climate concerns. Who would like to begin?
Well, can we do those 2 items that Steve Colomay recommended? That
Do you want to turn your...
I'm not really prepared yet, but there's 2 items that just need our approval. Do you remember what they are? Yes. Consider joining Ventura County Climate Action Plan effort. And then what was the other one?
Clean Power Alliance.
Yeah, let's do both those things. Get that done.
So are you asking that the wording be changed from consider to just do?
Yeah, I think so. Where it says consider energy efficient grant opportunities, apply for? Is that the wording we want? Yes. Yeah?
Okay.
Okay. All right, that's all I have right now.
Councilmember Lang.
Yes, I have a few things. One, for the first bullet point, develop a target timeline for city operations to achieve 0 emissions with projected budget allocations to achieve that goal. And then also I'd like to add something at a bullet point about prioritizing budget allocation for decarbonization projects. Go ahead. Oh, you have a question? All right. So that we're basically prioritizing moving our city operations away from greenhouse gases. And then the other thing would be for the third, I think that was Councilmember Francina mentioned that one. That was based on the comment we had. And then for the goal, instead of just responding, prioritizing climate decarbonization or prioritizing climate emergency emissions reduction. So that way we're establishing that this is a real threat.
May I ask the question? Does that add climate impact assessment section to city council agenda reports? Would that kind of be linked? Yeah.
So I wrote that down as mitigate climate change accelerators.
Next? Okay.
I'll go.
Mayor Pro Tem?
So I think that we need to, I endorse, there were a couple of people who spoke tonight about having a more comprehensive plan towards trees. I think we can, I like the idea of doing a tree inventory, and it sounds like there's a document that's several years old that would be a starting point for that. The city just went through a program, city and county, areas of extreme fire hazard. There was a grant program to remove invasive, really highly flammable trees. And I think we ought to look at the feasibility of expanding that to the rest of the city. So identify, I talked to various people who during the Thomas Fire, said that there were certain trees that were like Roman candles with Mexican palm fans and the cypress as being extremely, really flammable. And I have wanted us to add climate mitigation measures to our city website for a while, which I think that we should have an information section on our website that explains to people that are interested in reducing carbon emissions from their own home. How do I go about shifting from a gas water heater or gas dryer or whatever those appliances are to an electric? What rebates are available to me? How much impact am I going to be making by doing those things? And how do you do it cost effectively? And I'm hoping that maybe the Climate Emergency Committee, they've changed their name, I apologize, but that committee, has some material ready to go on that. And then, I think this is maybe going to end up being hashed out in our general plan discussions, but we mentioned the promotion of live, work, housing, and I know that the city made that effort about 20 years ago. We created a zone where we enhanced opportunities to do live, work, and so I would love to see some data on whether that was successful or not. Because my understanding is that there's very few people who have taken advantage or actually live in the same place where they have a workspace. And let's see. We have the sewer infrastructure in this item, and I think maybe that belongs in the next. Although this isn't necessarily proposing investment as much as just creating an information database so people understand it. Maybe it goes back in communication.
You're right. It could find another home, possibly. Yeah, this is kind of an orphan in here.
If I could, through the mayor, it also ties to the development component. If we have a master plan and developers and the septic areas came through, if you have the plan, it's an easier to then make up installing sewer a requirement of the development, depending on the exact facts. And I think it ties to climate change as some failing septic systems release methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas. Obviously, a working septic system does not. So that's the other piece of the puzzle.
Okay. And then I guess, for the public, the conversion from portions of the city that are septic to sewer is incredibly complex and expensive, and I guess that's all I'll say. But we should have a source for the public to be able to see what's going on, and they can give us suggestions about how to move forward.
Councilmember Francina?
Yeah, going back to the trees, maybe it would be productive if you met with Garrett Clifford, Kathy Nolan, and Jan Scoe. I consider them the top 3 tree experts, and discuss the possibility of a city arborist. And I don't know why Jan Scoe said it can't be him, but because we always I always thought he was going to be the city arborist. But didn't the city? I know the city had a city arborist. He died because I live across the street.
We had an unofficial
Yeah.
arborist. I don't think he was the city's arborist, but he was the consultant.
Yeah. I live across the street.
Mr. City Attorney?
We haven't in recent years had an employee arborist. We certainly had a consulting arborist who I think did pass. And then over the years, we've had various consulting arborists, but we've not in any recent timeline had an employee arborist.
Ms. Palmer can actually answer this question.
Oh, good.
So we have 3 on-call arborists right now, currently with the city. So if we have a tree that's been damaged, tree that's been fallen from a storm or something, or it looks diseased, we would contract out with one of our 3 arborists. We've also got a staff person. I'm not sure if a full-time arborist is necessarily necessary. We've also got a staff member who has expressed interest in becoming a certified arborist, who could take on those duties as well as his current functions. So that's something that we have explored.
And then, and
Well,
then just,
I think it's Councilmember Francina, were you?
And this, is it related to trees?
it is.
Okay.
And I meant to mention this, but Mr. Scow mentioned that and he's talked to me about this, he revised our tree ordinance.
Yes, yes.
Like
Going to say
at
that.
least a year ago.
Yes, yes, and I know that they want to bring it back.
And so, I would like us to get it, on the train that eventually lands on our.
Yeah, I think all 3 of the people I mentioned were involved. Okay, so then, let's see, 1, 2, 3. The 4th bullet point contains bikeways, and that is part of climate mitigation, but it should also be in infrastructure, don't you think? Yeah, but that ATP is not all of Ojai. I mean, okay, so when we get to this, I want to discuss the item that is up here, bikeways. I don't want to move it out of this, but I want to add it down below, and then I'll discuss it. I'm in favor of everything that's on here. I think we covered it now? I think.
Okay, Councilmember Rule, did you want to take a turn?
Yeah, so yeah, I support everything that's here for sure. What occurs to me is that we might think of things a little bit more holistically. Like we had spoken when we were talking about a growth management plan or a tourism plan or whatever it is, about ecotourism, which would fall both under, respond to climate concerns. It would fall under communication. Maybe there's an education component here, or throughout this, that our goals, we wish them to be, spread, at least through Ojai, but sometimes into the tourist industry as well. And so, I mean, we had, Kathy Nolan years ago had a whole plan in place for an ecotourism module that they were going to implement. So that occurs to me as something that, it's a win-win. The whole idea was that you would have people do restoration, tourists and stuff, providing for kids and tourists, give them something to do before they go drink wine at night, and have them come and, do some restoration, learn how to do some gray water stuff for us. So that seems to me to be pretty holistic, and there's concentric circles of wonderfulness happening from that. So we might figure out, once again, it's integrating all of these across these goals, and figuring out, I think that's going to be a big challenge for the staff, is like, because right now they're highly siloed, but of course we know that none of these are, live alone. None of them are sole entities. They've got to be interwoven. So that, I think, is going to be a real challenge as well. And perhaps that happens as it gets integrated into the general plan. I don't know. But, yeah, that would be my only comment. Otherwise, of course, I support all of these, and I support the changes that have come from, the outside experts that spend all of their free time thinking through these for us as well. So I'd like to give them silent but actual props on that.
Can I go ahead? Okay. Well, I agree with Councilmember Lang changing the title to prioritize climate decarbonization measures, or prioritize climate emergency emissions reduction actions. I think the council did a great job. We passed an ordinance for new construction, all electric, which is great. Most of the construction here, as we know, is not new. It's remodels. So many homes in our valley get remodeled frequently for hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I would like to require remodels to go all electric if they're above a certain price. If someone has the money to do a huge remodel, then they can go all electric. I agree with tree planting. We need more and more trees and to take care of our trees, clearly. For the first bullet point, I think it'd be great to add something along the lines of develop a target time frame for city operations to achieve zero emissions. And I know it's hard to put a time limit, although I think it's nice to set a goal because it's exciting, something to work towards. I think add a bullet point about prioritizing budget allocation for decarbonization projects, so we could earmark a percentage of Measure C funding, for example, for emissions reduction initiatives. Maybe 10%, because I think it's really important to deal with the crisis now. Things are going to get far worse, and I think it's our obligation and responsibility to get on it, and it's our responsibility as human beings to do that for our children. I think the third bullet point, I think we should change it to actively pursue opportunities to decarbonize and grant funding to reduce emissions, not just for city facilities, but for everything. For example, Clean Power Alliance just announced a huge new grant program that's rolling out this year, $250,000 to decarbonize city facilities or fleets. So that would be a great thing to pursue. And I agree with Councilmember Francina to go ahead and accept the grant from Clean Power Alliance and to accept Ventura County's invitation for Ojai to participate in the EPA-sponsored program, because both of these actions would reduce our costs for a climate action plan, potentially, or element in our general plan. And I think that's about it for now. Councilmember Lang?
Yes, thank you so much. So I just had two things that came up as I was listening to my colleagues. One is, this might fit along with emergency preparedness, but I would like to look at creating a microgrid. And then also, I think this goes along with Mayor Pro Tem Whitman's comments and also with the communications, including climate, basically there are so many, alerting the public to all the incentives and grants that are available. And then along with that, I'd like to look at what kind of incentive programs we could offer people for drought-tolerant landscaping, for converting their lawns to drought-tolerant landscaping, for moving to electrification, solar panels. So I'd like to look at that too.
Any other comments? I just also like to agree with Mayor Pro Tem about getting rid of the live work, because I think that if we promote that in our general plan, we're potentially exposing ourselves to the state for their high rent housing mandate. So I think we should hold on to our right for self-determination and leave that out.
Wait a minute.
I
What
would.
does that say?
Let's bring that back for discussion.
Yeah.
I mean, you can put it in there, but I wouldn't take a position one way or the other on that, because I think it's worthy of a discussion, and we have absolutely no data on anything.
Yeah.
And in fact, I know that people are working and living on Bryan Street right now. They're just under the radar.
Mm-hmm. And that's correct.
Okay.
And
Well,
and they've tried to get, so that they could do it legally. Yeah.
Okay, so that we can hold off on for now. But yeah.
As with the other items, it becomes an item to put on the future agenda for discussion. So clearly, the status of the existing live-work zoning, expanding, contracting, data options, a future objective.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to goal number 6, invest in infrastructure improvement.
Okay.
Who would like to begin?
I'd like to begin.
Go ahead.
One of my favorite subjects. I hope by the time we get through with discussing it, we'll change that boring title. And so this.
We're open to suggestions.
Yeah.
Put your money where your mouth is here.
Okay, so as a goal, as a vision, is that every residential street in Ojai is bicycle, pedestrian, friendly, safe for young children. That's the standard. Young children and inexperienced and older people with walkers and disabilities. If we have that as our gold standard, that would transform the town. It would keep kids from having to ride their bikes through the arcade and all of that. So, and in keeping with that, I would like to put in the 25 mile per hour. If I had my way, it'd be 25 mile per hour. And we had a slogan. What was it? 25 saves lives. That was our slogan when we discussed it about a year or two ago. And so as far as, and then as bikeways, you know, that's a term in my mind. It doesn't necessarily mean a dedicated bike lane, but that would include, for example, making it a priority to extend the bike trail to Soul Park. We have plenty of justification for that with the Cabrillo project and the pickleball projects going into Soul Park, all of that. And this desperately needs an education component, because a town that is successful where all the kids actually ride their bikes to school, they have bicycle education in the school. It's a unit. It's an ongoing unit, an age-appropriate unit, so that kids learn the traffic laws, and the infrastructure supports safe cycling. So they don't have to break the law to feel safe by riding on the sidewalk. I don't know if I'm just rambling or am I making it clear enough? Am I okay? Yes. Following it? So while my colleagues discuss the rest, I'm going to try to think of a great title, or maybe you all have objectives. But I really want to, I'm really, really serious about this, because part of our small town character is so that there's no reason why, when we were growing up, we all walked and rode our bikes to school. There's no reason why our little town cannot be a model for this, okay? And in keeping with that, our goal should be to keep all the tourist traffic out of downtown Ojai. That's one of my goals. There's many, many ways to do that, and it may sound a little, with each passing year, we can see the reality, because we can't expand our road. There's a narrow two-lane road in and out of Ojai. Our downtown is disgustingly congested. I don't know why. This would never be allowed in Europe, okay? They would never be allowed to have a downtown with this much cars, okay? So we have to figure out a comprehensive plan, and the tourists will end up loving it. Tourists don't complain when they go to a national forest. They don't expect to drive their cars through the forest, okay? So we can have, I know that, I'm sure that our complete streets plan and our bicycle pedestrian plan from 1998 has some scenarios that address that, and we can build on that. It's going to become in order to increase, if we're going to have more tourists, and all the things that are happening that are attracting tourists, we can't legally keep people out, right, Mr. Summers?
I mean, generally no. And I would posit that if the goal is to have tourists fund the rest of what they fund, then banning them from coming might be self-defeating. With the right policies, procedures, and regulatory backup in place, we can implement all kinds of traffic and traffic demand management systems.
Yes.
As the council may look at. And in partnership with Caltrans, who controls the road, we can look at reducing traffic on Ojai Avenue, or better managing the traffic we have there.
Okay. And I have a question about that. It's probably beyond the scope of today, but over the years, maybe every 10 years, every 20 years, didn't the city look at taking back the...
It's about every 10-ish years it comes up, and typically when it comes up, it's looked at, and the ultimate conclusion is that the council at the time isn't willing to bear the maintenance costs that Caltrans pays for the road. Whether to pursue that again is a possible objective for the council, mindful that that's a significant budget hit and shouldn't be done lightly. And the manager is going to chime in on that point.
Yeah.
You don't have the men or machines to take that on.
Okay. All right. But it has been.
You
looked
see
at.
why it comes up and then is put
Yeah,
back down.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Councilmember Lang?
Yes, thank you. So one thing, we need to bring back the Drown Street speed study. That had a year time limit. Then the other thing is I would really love to do some kind of study on the accessibility. Oh yeah, go ahead, yes.
So I'm going to just jump in here on this one, and this may be not popular whatsoever, but I'm not a huge fan of speed studies. I'm just going to say that because I don't think that they really are very helpful. I'm a huge fan of enforcement because I think that is really impactful. And if you want to go to a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit citywide, great. You know, we can move that effort. But I really would like to explore having a motorcycle officer either on a part-time basis if we share the resource or a full-time basis if you really want to do that. But that really is going to be the most, in my view, in my experience, the most impactful for reducing speed.
Mm-hmm. But may I jump in for a moment?
Yes, please, go ahead.
So in prior discussion about the 25 mile per hour, it was understood that it might not be totally able to enforce it at first, you know, but by having the signage, somebody tailgating you can't complain that you're not going 35 miles per hour up Foothill Road. Okay, we're considering all the streets in Ojai that still have outdated, in my opinion, outdated speed limits that was before what people had SUVs. I mean, people are passing on North Signal Street. They're passing on Grand. These are unprecedented, you know, people didn't used to drive like that. And so we have to somehow communicate to everyone that this is critical. This is a true health and safety issue. When I used to do the bike trains, we had to have 3 police escorts just to go a few blocks to Topa Topa. We, as a council, we have to recognize this is unacceptable in our small town.
So through the mayor, I think there's no communication that's louder than a citation.
Yeah.
That's the loudest communication, and people get the message right away.
Yeah.
And I don't think that City Manager Harvey was so much discounting the possibility of adjusting speed limits as much as doing these comprehensive studies.
Yeah, we don't need a study. The residents.
I think that's what he was saying. Don't do a study.
Hire a cop.
Do your thing and hire a cop.
Yeah, and the residents themselves have studied it for years. They can tell you that almost every street, people are the complaints are only accelerating. Okay, and the photographs of the recent accidents, it's just a wonder that nobody was killed.
So through the mayor, the chief and I would like to come back with some options for you to consider. It's going to cost some additional money, but you know, so do these road diets, so do speed studies, except for this one actually I think is going to change behavior. You just have to keep doing it probably every year because as soon as the enforcement goes away, bad behavior returns.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Lang, did you want to finish?
Yes, thank you. So I agree with the enforcement. That's something I've heard from a number of my constituents, and I'm also in agreement with Councilmember Francina about reducing the speed and making this a real priority. I have 2 other things. One is I'd like to evaluate the accessibility in the arcade and especially at those intersections. And look at how to make those more accessible. And then finally, oh my gosh, what was it? I just had it. Oh my gosh, I totally just forgot it. I'm all for the broadband efforts, and I have one more that I can't remember, so I'm going to pass it. I'm going to let someone else talk while I try to remember what I was going to say.
Councilmember Rule?
Yeah, I support Councilmember Francina's idea that we move Ojai to a bikeable, walkable Ojai for fun and wellness, and that be a goal of ours.
And climate mitigation.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is climate mitigation, obviously, but it's also safety. It's many, many, many things. So once again, it comes into the idea of, where do you put it how do you categorize it when it actually is cross-referencing everything or cross-pollinating everything. But I really would like a goal to figure out how we make Ojai bikeable and walkable and all the things that means, tourists getting out of their cars, having electric bikes available, having safe ways to do this. It's a huge, huge undertaking, but as far as climate mitigation goes, that's going to be that's going to do the heavy lifting. Getting people out of their cars. So I don't know if that's a goal in and of itself. I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but it's certainly large enough and forward-thinking enough, and ultimately the question becomes, is it doable, and what part of that can we do? We can certainly do some parts of it. So, who wouldn't want to live in a walkable, bikeable Ojai? Everybody wants to live in a walkable, bikeable Ojai, I think. So I would love to have that as a standalone goal and figure out how that actually works.
May I ask a question?
I'm going to take a turn. Street paving, pretty please. And it's no one's fault. We've just ignored it for a long time, and the longer, as I said, the longer we wait, the more expensive it gets. On the fifth item about the crosswalks, and I brought this up a few times, we do have two, in my opinion, unsafe crosswalks right downtown, in front of the coffee roasters and right in the middle. In terms of the one right in the middle of the arcade, one idea is to eliminate a few parking spaces right there, because what I've seen is very hard to see people who are crossing when their car is right there. So that's just one idea. And, in terms of the circulation and pedestrian safety, of course, we have increased the number of tourists in our town exponentially in just the last couple of years. So the expansion of the economy and the tourism industry has created those issues that weren't here as much as they were, even 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I think we really need to keep that in mind and find that balance between quality of life and a thriving economy. So I guess that's. Did you want to say something, Councilmember Lang?
I remembered what I was going to bring up before, and that is parking. We had a parking committee that we still do. we were meeting and coming up with some ideas, and I think this speaks to the walkability too. So this could be actually placed under that category. Looking at the possibility of making parking great again. No, like adding. I'm sorry. I have sleep deprived. But like looking at parking options.
Let's make sure to take turns. Councilmember Rule, and then
I had one last thing before. It occurs to me that what's also coming up, and I'm doing cross-pollination again, is an educational component. So maybe it lives in communication, and we sort of go back and ask ourselves, does this warrant an educational component for all of these major sort of initiatives? Does it warrant an educational component, be that a forum or a town hall or a part of the website or a visit to a school or whatever? Because a lot of these, success is really determined by rollout, how it's rolled out. So, I think I'd like to have a default to evaluate whether or not an educational component is a good idea and what that would look like.
Okay. Final comments on goal 6, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I haven't put my input in at all on this one yet.
And I want to have a turn after him.
So I've talked to a lot of people about what we're doing here tonight, and overwhelmingly across all of these goals, it's some variation on traffic. Traffic volume, traffic speed, street surfaces, whatever the heck it is that Caltrans is doing to us. And, shouldn't we know what it is they're trying to achieve so that we look at, what was it, Mr. Clafe that said? Yeah. But, the community certainly doesn't know what Caltrans has in store for us and why everything's torn up and staying torn up. And electric bikes and safety related to electric bikes was brought up repeatedly. That we've got kids who haven't gone through driver's education, but they're driving, they're using bikes with motors as if they're motorcycles, and they're zooming around our streets. And so I would really like to see us look at the idea of some special special bike regulations. I'm not sure what those should be, but what I had in mind was potentially one, a restriction of bike speeds in the downtown core. And then also it seems like we should be potentially requiring some type of permit that makes you at least take a driver's
They
driver's
should be
test.
licensed. Let's just say it.
Yeah, okay.
They need to take a.
No crosstalk, please.
So I appreciate what a council member Francina says about this, safe streets concept with a goal for every street in the city to be safe. But I think the more realistic thing for us is to identify, a couple of streets where we can have a goal of, this is our first place where we want it to be safe all the way from the neighborhood into town, or like a circulation concept for streets and bikes, but tackle them one at a time. But then we also probably have to think about when we make improvements to properties. And this is a very volatile issue for city residents, but do we require them to give back the easement that we have for doing sidewalks? One of the things a former mayor of ours would regularly complain about was that he had a family member that would visit him that was wheelchair bound, and he was scared to death of taking that person in the wheelchair and walking them, through town, because you had to continually go out into the street. So let's see. I agree with the arcade pedestrian crossing issue, and I was looking at that more from the fact that crossing tends to take our downtown traffic to a dead stop, and maybe we ought to look at phasing how we get people across there, and maybe even look at look at a light, a traffic light and make them wait a while before they cross the street, so that we can get traffic through. I received a lot of concern about the recreation bike trail. That's a county property, but complaints that it's in poor condition in terms of the surface, and then the complaint that was mentioned tonight that we should have it extend, out to Soul Park. I have no idea we would do that, but I think it's something we should be looking at. I had a conversation with somebody a few months back, and we talked about the fact that, well, we get TOT from tourists, but we don't have that. Not all the tourists are staying somewhere, so we have all these visitors who are potentially here, and we talked about, in tongue in cheek, let's put a admission gate at one end of the city and another at the other end of the city, charge admission for everybody who's not a city resident.
I'm all for
And,
that.
well, okay, so this is what we decided would be a substitute for that. And I don't know how the public would respond to this. I know that, they've kind of backtracked on paid parking in the city of Ventura. But I think that if we directed tourists to a public parking lot that they had to pay for, that it would be a way of raising money for people who come here. And so I'd like to see us at least look at that. I think I've heard that the Planning Commission has talked about that a little bit.
On the parking committee.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I think we should take a look at that.
We
as
almost
a,
bought a parking lot, by the way.
Sorry. Let's see. Lots of very strong support for a traffic enforcement officer.
Yes. Yeah.
I was waiting to hear that some people would think that was too not Ojai, and their response to the people that I talked to, and it was pretty extensive, really anxious that we start writing tickets for bad drivers. And then I'm not sure, exactly where this fits, but we have to keep into consideration as we're managing our current traffic. We have the El Roblar yet to come online. That's 50 possible visitors with cars and or pedestrian. We've got 50 units at Cabrillo. We've got, more than 50 units coming in from Becker. The school district is in the infancy of deciding what they might want to do on their property, but they're talking about 50 to 60 units as kind of a general concept. So I think I also heard there is a proposal for a hotel out at Soul Park. And so we need to,
Soul Park.
As we plan, we need to anticipate that it's not just the traffic we have today that we're dealing with, but we have a lot of traffic in the pipeline that's been approved over the last, year and a half or so. And I'll stop with that.
Okay. Do you
Yeah,
want-
yeah. I want to talk about two things. Going back to parking, I'll put that on hold, but don't let me forget. You have a bullet point, the third line, the third bullet from the bottom of the item that we're now on, where it says evaluate the appropriateness of a complete streets program for the city of Ojai. I don't know what you meant by that, but it doesn't sound right.
So, through the mayor, evaluate the appropriateness of a complete streets program for the city of Ojai. And what we mean by this is a complete street, and this is going to sound, let me make it through the statement. It might not be right for every single street in Ojai. Why? Because Ojai has a certain character and feel that might be destroyed if you made sure that every street had a class 1 bike lane and a sidewalk. Some of your streets are windy with rock curbs and so on and so forth. So you're probably never going to get to a comprehensive complete street policy here. So the discussion about maybe identifying a couple areas that make sense and pursuing those is probably better, but comprehensively, I think you're going to
Okay,
destroy
look,
part of what you love about the town.
I totally understand what you're saying, but every street can be safe for bicycles and pedestrians if you make that more of a priority than drivers. The paradigm shift is pedestrians, bicycles, cars. If you want to go, that's already my paradigm shift. For example, in the Arbolada, the speed limit should probably be 15 miles per hour. And, and that will discourage trucks from trying to go, it's become a rat run. The Arbolada, all that traffic should be on the highway, not used as a shortcut, okay? So and the people in the Arbolada that live there constantly looking over their shoulder to make sure that they're not going to get killed, okay? That's not right. If you make the pedestrian the priority, you do what you need to. Foothill Road. There are people who stop walking up Foothill because they don't want to jump in a ditch because people are speeding up that street. Foothill Road, that should not be allowed. You can do appropriate. Maybe the word's not infrastructure, but there are things you can do to discourage. Obviously, we don't want. Every street, it can be what can happen if the will is there and the paradigm shift is there, then parking and cars are not as important as the safety. And I've been trying to say this, for my whole tenure here and prior. For example, Grand Avenue. The council back in 1998, they had an opportunity. We had a plan to have parking on one side of the street. And then you restripe so that the kids can go to school. But the council at the time couldn't make that shift in their mind, and they decided that car parking was more important than the safety of the school-age children. I think we now have a council that's more forward-thinking, and they would prioritize kids going to school, because then the parents don't have to chauffeur them everywhere. Every morning you see one child, one parent, all this traffic. I mean, all of these things are connected, okay? So I don't know quite how to reward that, but
I think can I interrupt for one
Yeah.
second? Our
Okay.
Public Works Director has a comment.
Oh,
Sure,
wonderful.
thank you. I have a lot of comments on everything that
Love
you
to
have all
hear.
said. I'm not even sure where to begin.
Yeah.
I guess I'll begin with all of these are valid, all of these are real, all of these are projects and issues that we all consider all the time. I will be coming back to you all in, I think, April 23rd to have a comprehensive capital improvement study session. So I will be talking about all of the projects that we are proposing in the next 5 years, specifically next year, year one, that's our budget year. I will be asking for an increase in paving budget, because I hear that all the time. I'm hearing that this evening. We all hear that. We want safe roads. We want drivable roads. We want all those things. The other item, there's a lot of deferred maintenance that has happened in this city, including infrastructure that we can't see. For example, storm drain system. So we have to think about all of this strategically and put the timing together right. We want to, of course, do all of the underground structures before we resurface the roads. There are some storm drains that we perhaps can line without having to excavate, so there's lining companies who come in and reline the failed system. The other thing that I will be talking to you about in April, and lots of these questions will be answered, and I don't want to kind of kick it down the road, but I'm just telling you that will happen in a dedicated session. This section will be a dedicated session. So I would recommend that we have a comprehensive drainage study, a master drainage study for all of our storm drain system, and moving forward for the next 4 years after that, putting in a substantial amount of money to repair those. So when we do come back to pave the roads, the underground infrastructure will be done. And that's the order of things. The question about complete streets, many of you have spoken about that. I remember Councilmember Whitman mentioning some time ago that perhaps we do and I'm not sure if this is the right word, but this is the word how I would see it, demo areas. So we select smaller segments, and you also spoke about that too, Councilmember Rule, that maybe we take it in smaller pieces. There's too much to do this all at once. So maybe we get together and we select, maybe a route that we would like to begin to implement complete streets, rather than just say, okay, we're doing complete streets. It's not really feasible based on the resources that we have, both in staff time and financial resources. It's very, very expensive. And as you will remember, when I brought the study session to you, or the presentation to you back in the fall, and talked about, we looked at Grand Avenue and what it would look like to do complete streets. We've allowed, over time, a lot of utility poles and utility structures in the public right-of-way. We've allowed a lot of hardscape, block walls, brick walls, trees, mailboxes, etc. Up in the Arbolada, we have allowed property owners to plant large trees, so much so that now there's sight distance problems for people pulling out of their driveways. And so I am having to go out and say, you trim your plants down, they're in our public right of way, you've got to bring them down so people coming out of their driveways can see when they pull out. So there's a lot of things that have just developed over time. No one's fault, it just kind of has happened. But they all come into play in terms of doing a complete streets, and these are wonderful, wonderful concepts and ideas. We just need to figure out a way to get there. And I think it's kind of in pieces.
Thank you, Ms. Palmer. We look forward to that meeting.
And one more comment that I need to make too is, I've been in very close contact with the County of Ventura as of late for other reasons, but I've also had conversations about the bike trail. So that is under design right now, from Ventura all the way to the terminus here at Soul Park, and it will all be paved, including the sections that are our responsibility to maintain. County's going to do that.
Wonderful.
So that'll happen soon.
Thank you. Just want to say one thing to council. It's 9:30. We still have 2 more goals to get through. So if we could wrap up this one and move on to goal number 7.
I didn't get to finish.
Can I,
Yeah.
let me finish my sentence. If we could wrap this up, and then, because we could finish tonight, potentially. So let's quickly wrap up goal number 6.
But I didn't get to finish.
Go ahead.
Because Lindy had important things to say. So, Lindy, I didn't hear you just say that the bike extension plan is already underway. You're just saying about maintaining the trail.
The concept is, the design is to repave from Ventura, from the beach all the way up to the end.
To Bryant Street.
To Bryant Street, not beyond Bryant Street.
Okay, so we still have to work on that.
Yes, and I've had conversations about that, and we can talk about that another time.
Okay, yeah.
In the interest of time.
Okay, so when evaluate, I just want to make sure that sentence, if it stays, doesn't mean that we're questioning, I don't know if there's a better way to word that. And then as far as the comment on parking, if you, there's massive books written about this, but if you want people to get out of their cars, you don't keep providing parking. Make it, people figure out that they would have, instead of driving around looking for a parking space, if they live 6 blocks from town, they could have walked it already twice, okay? So that's just an aside. And then we haven't mentioned the trolley in this, or public transportation at all in this, and surely that deserves a bullet point, because the Ventura County Transportation Commission has won all kinds of awards for providing free bus rides for tourists and seniors, and we may come out ahead if we just give everybody a trolley pass.
Through the mayor, real quick, we actually did mention trolley. It was discussed earlier. We actually talked about potentially contracting out the trolley service, and the comment, one of the comments received was maybe evaluate all those on a 1-by-1 basis.
And does that include trolley and other, do we still have help of Ojai, that bus? We used to have these,
I don't know about that.
We're such a little town, but there are people who could live without a car if they could just, for the once a week when they need a driver, if they could call up, we need to, if we're thinking ahead, we need to have not just the trolley, but smaller modes. I know that's not, did you say that's in here somewhere?
I think that's covered on back on page 1 under the evaluate and pursue more effective service through contracting.
Where?
There are programs, I know in one of my other cities in LA County, they have a demand response transit program.
Yeah.
Where they
That's
sort
what I'm
of
talking about.
equivalent to paratransit,
Thank
but
you.
not only for disabled persons.
Yeah.
That's something we could pursue through partnership, possibly with Gold Coast Transit or others.
Yeah,
So I think
that's what I'm
that's
talking
on the
about.
list.
Yeah, okay, especially
And
with
through the mayor, that would be what we would consider sort of a dial-a-ride service.
Yeah.
And that would be something, if we decide to contract with Gold Coast, they could provide as well.
Yeah, because, think about it, all the cars we could eliminate. Because not just that they're moving, but that they're taking up space that could, it would, yeah.
All right,
Great,
can we move on to
okay.
goal 7 or 6?
I do want to make
Okay,
one last
okay.
comment that the discussion about addressing drainage reminded me that I was at a meeting today where they talked about the 3 inches of rain in 50 minutes that happened at Port Hueneme Harbor, and what their environmental specialist was telling the members of the board was that they're having to completely rethink their infrastructure for the idea that we're going to see more and more storms like that. I mean, we were projected to get hit by a storm that was going to do 12 inches overnight, and we ended up getting like 6, but Westlake and some of those areas got that 12 inches of rain. So we do need to look also at a larger carrying capacity as we experience more violent rain events.
Through the
Yep,
mayor, real quick. So I totally agree with that, and I think that we're on borrowed time right now with our storm drain system. I really do. From some of the cameras I've seen, some of the videotapes that I've seen of the condition of our storm drain system, and I'd really like to get ahead of it. I think it would be. I mean, I don't think we're ahead of it now, but we don't want to get further behind. I really think it should be a priority.
Great. So can we move on to?
Yeah, just one. I'm so sorry. One last comment. I just want to re-emphasize that there's a way to look at things that you're prioritizing cars, and there's a way to look at things that where you're prioritizing walking and biking, and they may be two different views in, and I think both of them should be viewed in, given what is going on. And you can't overemphasize enough that it's car emissions that are the largest source of greenhouse gases in Ojai. It's the largest source by far. Stoves, not so much. So I think we need to look at that. And I would like two pairs of eyes, two perspectives into that. What would it look like here? But what would it look like here? If we're going to pave, does it look the same or does it look different? That kind of thing. That's all I want to say.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to goal number 7, maintain community character. Who would like to begin?
Well, we've been talking about
Okay.
that.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, okay, so I think I'd like to add to this objective the idea of tourism management. One of the things that I heard, multiple times in asking about tonight's project is the idea that I won't go downtown on the weekend. And I think we need, I don't know what the solution to that is, but we need to make our town a place that the people who live here feel welcome in and feel like it's their town. And okay, so that's and then we need to you know, there's a lot of things we need to address in terms of avoiding our current residents, especially our renter population, from being priced out and driven out from town. On the Habitat for Humanity item, we had discussed whether we should retain ownership of 408 Montgomery Street and work with Habitat for Humanity and the concept of purchasing the home or the structure and not the land, because that allows us to, if our goal is that that lot is going to be affordable in perpetuity, then we're better able to do that if we own it, and they still get to the people who are going to benefit from that project will still get to benefit from the appreciation and value of their residence.
And let me jump in there on that pause. So that's already on schedule to return in a closed session for discussion of those options.
Okay.
And has under price in terms of payment, how the city wants to structure that deal on the agenda in a couple of meetings.
Yeah.
And then my last comment is that I think on the short-term rental issue, we probably need to figure out how to assess data, collect and assess data on, I know there's a lot of, last time we talked about it, there's a lot of dispute about just how much, how many short-term rental violators there are. I'm not sure if they're doing it, you know, under cover.
Right, yeah. On that one, also on future agenda, that one I think we set for the first meeting in April to return with the discussion from the last time on adjustments to the ordinance. We'll also return with what data we have. We don't have perfect data. There is no perfect data. We'll return with what information we have regarding the recent enforcement efforts that have been fairly successful. And also, we've just entered into a contract with a new rental enforcement company. The prior one was not where we needed it to be. We actually terminated their services, and I say we, Lucas and the staff did, and brought in a new company that will give us, we're hoping, much better data. We'll bring that information to the council for that item set for currently the first meeting in April.
I should have looked at the future agenda items more closely.
Who would
No
like-
worries.
But I'm glad those things are being addressed.
Yeah, and there's always, the last comment on that is there's always a gap between perception and actual data on something like short-term rentals, because folks are like, I saw somebody who with a suitcase on my street. We don't necessarily know that it was a short-term rental or not, but we'll get what hard data we do have. And then the council can consider the options as we're discussing at the last meeting.
Okay. Who would like to, Councilmember?
Yeah, I'm just going to chime in once again on the short-term rentals as well. I mean, data is really good. We don't have any. We need some, but we also need to be clear on, you know, the effects in a town of 100,000 versus the effects of a town of 8,000. So when you say, so it's complicated. It's not just numbers as well. We need to look at how that data is relevant to our particular situation and context. So I'd like that to also be part of the data discussion, contextualizing it for us as well.
Councilmember Lang?
Are you finished?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Thank
great,
you.
thanks. So I have three things that have been brought to my attention. First one is I'd like to add looking at an inclusive housing ordinance. The second one is looking into what would it be like to create a home share program or really collaborate with Ventura's home share program. And then finally, this goes to more of the building character. It was recently brought to my attention that if someone has a house fire or someone has something going on, like filing an insurance claim for their home, that the city doesn't have an architect requirement, so that insurance companies aren't covering architects. So basically, if we have historic buildings that fall into some kind of tragedy, that the homeowner has to pay for the architect out of their own pocket if they use one at all. And I think that could pose problems for keep maintaining the look and feel of the homes in our area.
Can I ask, what did you mean by inclusive housing ordinance? Is that what you said?
The word another term that often is known by is inclusionary housing ordinance. And typically the way they're done is if a project is built with, let's say, 20 units, you require 10% or 1 unit to be affordable housing. Most projects, as we've seen recently, that are above a certain size have affordable units to get the density bonus benefits. But an inclusionary housing ordinance says all projects above a certain size must include a certain amount of affordable housing, which then entitles them to a density bonus benefit, but it requires a certain amount of affordable with all projects of a certain size. And we had one back in the early 2000s. They were outlawed in 2004 or 5. It was repealed from the city's ordinances then, and then the law changed. They were re-allowed, and then the councils in the time in the late 2000s, early 2010s didn't put it back in, and council couldn't consider it as a policy option.
And just to comment on this topic, and that my understanding is that inclusionary housing also includes the concept that the affordable housing will be on the same footprint as whatever market rate housing is being built, so that you're not creating social separation of the affordable versus the market rate housing.
Typically, yes. So some cities will allow an in lieu fee, and that's another policy choice baked into that discussion. But yeah, if you require the housing on site, and you often typically require it to be dispersed throughout a project. There was a famous case in a city in LA County where the developer's first proposal had what was labeled on the plans a pour door for the affordable units on the back next to the trash. Thankfully, that city outlawed that. Can't imagine a developer thinking that was acceptable, but things like that, you outlaw that up front. So all things to be considered if that comes forward.
Okay.
I'm gonna.
Do you want to take?
Can I go ahead?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think most important to me is to strengthen our rent stabilization and tenant protection ordinances, because those are some of the best things we can do to keep people from being gentrified out of their homes and maintain our middle class. I'd like to lengthen our STR length to 90 days because I feel like we owe it to our community to maintain our housing stock, and we need to maintain the housing stock for long-term residents and not allow short-term stays as they decrease our housing stock. I think in terms of the workshop, this is bullet number 3. Historically, we've had difficulty getting younger folks to show up. So figuring out a plan to get younger people to participate in the surveys, because of course it is going to affect their quality of life the most. Recently there have been some issues about pop-ups and markets, so figuring out a way to regulate that so it doesn't create too much congestion and we have enough but not too much. And I would also include some kind of way to regulate or enforce all of the sandwich sideboards, which are everywhere, and they're not legal, and yet they, and racks of clothes, for example. Let's see. And also to continue, we've been Ojai's always been an animal community. We love our animals here, so continue to work for animal welfare, animal protection, companion animal protection, and do whatever we can moving forward to be a compassionate community for all beings.
This is under maintained community.
Well,
character.
that's our
It's
community.
fine with me, I'm
Yeah,
just asking.
yeah, I would say our community character, we're an
Yeah.
animal-loving community, so continue along those lines.
Okay, so, oh, are you done?
Yeah.
So along those lines, just thought of this, there's a state law that's in the works so that you cannot automatically disqualify renters if they have pets. And if that doesn't get adopted by the state, we should look at that and adopt something locally. So that it's a case by case. Obviously some places aren't as compatible for. What's your dog's name again? Marmaduke? Rocky. Yeah. I think it was Marmaduke. Yeah, that's important. That is so important because that's why the shelters are so crowded right now, one of the reasons. I just wanted to ask, when you say tourism management, to me, the thing that the traffic management, traffic destroys a community's character. When streets are filled with cars speeding, you no longer have your small town character until, at nighttime when everybody's asleep. And maybe during the middle of the day. But so when you say tourism management, to my way of thinking, what you're really talking about is tourism traffic management, because we're not managing necessarily, we don't mind people getting off of a bus and walking around town. We just don't want their traffic.
Well, in terms of what I intended by talking about tourism management, traffic is certainly an issue, but I think just, the idea that that we have a lot of people in our community upset for the idea that the tourists have become more important than them, and that their way of enjoying the town is they feel like they're being deprived of that.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the solutions are, but I think it's worthy of a discussion to look at how can we make the fact that have all these tourists more palatable to our community? Are there things that we can do? For the signboards that the mayor mentioned, I think are one example of that. We never used to have that.
We know where things are.
That's a pretty new development that we got signboards everywhere. But if you do go to the arcade on the weekend, there's signboards everywhere, and it's so I think there's a myriad of things that we can address that hopefully harmonize the fact that we need the income from the tourists, but we need to reduce the impact on the residents in the community.
Okay. Can I add to that? That's where concepts like ecotourism come in. We had probably 20 years ago like a conference at Meditation Mountain about ecotourism, and we don't really want busloads of people that come for 3 hours just to buy trinkets. We want people that come here for deeper, have different, that's part of the conversation. People that are happy to park once and then get around town alternative transportation, and they support the town, and they want to learn, how we maintain our wonderful character. So part of that is what kind of tourists do we want to attract? Would that be part of the concept?
Oh, I would think.
Yeah.
I think it's a really broad concept.
Yeah, it's a broad concept. Okay, wonderful.
I think it's ready to move on to the final.
Yeah.
The final goal.
Yeah.
Yay.
Let's just approve
Okay,
it. That looks good.
goal number 8, manage unhoused encampment. Who would like to begin?
So I'll go first this time. So my biggest concern is that we get a handle on what it's going to cost us to get to the you know, to go beyond the tent stage and get to the, the temporary permanent housing stage. And I'm not convinced that what we're dealing with from the grant proposal with so that which turns out to be a $12.6 million, potential project, that it's cost effective or sustainable for us, so that I would like to see staff bring back proposals about the type of housing and where it would be, and alternatives, so that we look at all the alternatives on doing this cost effectively. And then there's one other issue that I think we need to address, and maybe it's not addressable, but my understanding right now is that if we plan for the community, the community that we have right now, and 30 more people show up, so that we go from 30 to 40 to 70 to 80, that are there any strategies for us to avoid going to 70 or 80 and kind of, and keep, there is concern in the community that we're going to have an endless stream of people saying, okay, I want my place now too. And does our little town have the ability to absorb that?
That's where the home share comes in.
Let's one at a time. Who would like to, Councilmember Rowe?
So, I guess, are we going to have a special meeting on this? Are you're going to bring it back once? I mean, in 2 weeks we might know whether or not we have the grant. We may not. I mean, sooner rather than later. In other words, I guess my point is, should we go into detail here, or is this going to come back as a standalone? Because I think it should come back as a standalone so that we can delve more deeply into it. I mean, I know we're waiting on a ruling from the Supreme Court to see if Boise stands. If Boise stands, then, unless you have a place to put unless you can provide shelter, they can, unhoused people can live in the park. And you can put unhoused people in shelters, but yes, if more come and you don't have a place for them. So anyway, I think that this is a deeper discussion, and it might roll in with, all stakeholders or not. So that's kind of my question.
That was my intent in raising it, that it would be brought back to us for pretty comprehensive
Mr. City
discussion
Manager,
on what our options are.
did you want to make a comment?
Please. Thank you. So, yes to all these questions have been asked. I think, we're going to hear back from the state as to whether we get this grant at the end of the month. I think that providing an update on the unhoused encampment probably should trail that. So initially on your working agenda document, we have an update for next meeting. I think I'm going to push that probably until either the first or second meeting in April, because I'd really rather come back and tell you whether we were successful or not. It's always been our plan to come back to you and provide you with a menu of potential phase 2 options. We're working on that currently. We have a really promising one that we hope to advance and champion, but we don't know if it has traction yet. So more to come on this, but yes, we hear all your concerns about this, and it's certainly, we want to have a strategy to keep the number as static as we can, but we might have some limitations in that area.
So can I suggest that we wait, Council, until this comes back? Thank you,
actually,
Councilmember Rule, for that.
Sorry to interrupt you, Mayor.
Sure.
The other thing I wanted to say really quickly, two things really quick. I think we're going to need to table the the infrastructure goals until after we have the CIP discussion. That would make a lot more sense to me give you the CIP discussion, you decide what you want to put into the budget, because really that's going to become your goals for the next year.
Right.
And the exercise, when you do get these back, is really going to be one of narrowing things down now. We don't want to end up with like a 30-page document and we can't deliver. So that's going to be the hard part next time, is there's been a lot of really good things here. We're going to have to thin it down again to what you want, because again, it's 12 months and you've got 50 people that work for you.
And talk cost. too.
And cost.
Okay,
Right.
all right, so we'll wait and finish this. Okay, yep, Councilmember Lang?
Oh, go ahead, yes.
I just have one question. So I'm all for tabling this, but I also wanted to see if we could address some of the concerns that were raised tonight in public comments about laundry, or like about laundry facilities or bathroom showers.
Part of that discussion later, once we know where the grant stands and coming back to you, we will not have a shower facility or a kitchen facility before then.
Thank
And what
you.
we're focusing on now, and you've seen this in your weekly updates from me, is we're really focusing on building out the tents. That's the effort. So there's 4 and sheds going in. That has to be the first. The primary goal is to get people out of the woodland and the creek area up into the greater parking lot area. Once that's addressed, then other things maybe the council wants to, but that's the focus right now.
It's looking good out there right now, a lot happening.
A lot happening.
And thank you, Mr. Assistant City Manager, for taking notes so carefully. Appreciate that. All right, so we will move on. Thank you, Council, for that discussion. And Mr. I don't know what to call it, management analyst who's filling in for the city clerk. Are there any comments online at this point?
There are not currently any comments online, but let's hold for one moment and give our viewers a chance. And I think we're okay to proceed.
Okay, excellent. All right, we will move on to council member reports. Anyone have anything to report?
I want to ask a question of the chief, but I don't know when I can ask that.
Let's.
Perhaps
okay.
after the meeting?
What?
The chief will stay, perhaps after the meeting.
No.
Well, I have an announcement, everybody. Buy tickets for Les Miserables. Oui. Vive la résistance. Going fast. It's supposed to be really good. Anybody else? Nope. City manager's report?
I'll make a plug. If anybody's, interested, the 20-minute or so talk by this guy at the Port of Wainimi, who gave a presentation to the Ventura County Air Pollution Control Board. It was very informative about what we're facing in terms of climate change, what the scientists are saying about what we need to do to anticipate things in the future. And so almost certain you can pick up, look at a video of that presentation if you go to the Ventura County Air Pollution Control Board website.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, anything to report?
No, thank you.
Okay, all right, and we're not doing future agenda items, so thank you all so much for a productive meeting. Lots of work to do out there. We are adjourned.